Okay, so apparently we're live. I'm sharing my screen. Let me remove that from the scene. Now we're looking at Brian's screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do not know yet whether we are actually live. I'm going to double check here.
It does say
Because
we are.
Hi guys, everybody.
Yeah, I can see in the chat.
Yeah, I can see we're live. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So EVMux is messing with us. First message of the day is if you're considering using EVMux, this is not good. This is not good. It took us quite a while to get to this point. Mark still isn't with us, but I can see that about 200 other people are. So hell freaking yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I guess we're just gonna start out with the three of us. I'm gonna do a quick introduction. Just gonna say hello, and perhaps just run you through you guys. First of all, sound check. I guess all of us say something. Kevin, say something.
Test.
Test. Brian.
Good morning.
Yes, wonderful. Everybody. Oh, Mark is here. Amazing.
Yo.
There's Mark. You made it. Wonderful.
Oh,
So everybody can hear us well? You guys let us know.
Nice.
Thank you about the nice hat comment. Sounds good. Wonderful. Thank you, Dave Dan. So here we are. Finally, we made it. What are you builders? What are your locations? Where are you watching us from? Let us know, guys. Thank you very much. We can hear. Sounds good. Yep, perfect. Winter Garden, Florida. Great. So we can start. What's going to happen today? So welcome to Bridge Builders episode 2. It's slightly larger than episode 1. So, good times there. I'm not freaking out in the least. If you're watching this on replay, we're going to put chapter marks in this so you guys can jump around. And what we're going to do now is just a quick run over what the mission is, what we're doing with Bricks Builders, and then we won't even waste much time. Just go right into the building. So, Mark, do you want to give us a quick guide about what's going to happen today and what Bridge Builders is to just get started?
Absolutely. You guys hear me very well? Hopefully all right. I know we've had some microphone issues. Apologize about technical difficulties. I have no idea what the hell was going on with my computer. But we're here now. Maddie, thank you so much for hosting this. Guys, please leave him likes down below, subscribe to the channel, everything like that. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Brian, for being here. The mission and the philosophy here and the idea, again, Maddie's idea. I always want to try to remember to say that because incredible idea that he's came up here with the Bridge Builder series. If you saw the first episode, the idea is to just bridge these gaps between these builders. We have Bricks, we have Gutenberg, we have Elementor, we have all these different great tools, and there's a lot of misunderstandings and conversations back and forth about this versus this. And we just want to have, like today, two pros in different varying spaces build the same thing and literally just have a conversation with us and with you guys. You can ask questions, different things like that, to see what these workflows are all about, and really just shine a light on different tools and where they shine, pros, cons, and all that sort of stuff. Really just have a nice conversation. So that's kind of the overall thing that we're trying to do here. Sweet. Awesome. Love it. As far as quick recap too, I'll just run through that real quick. Guys, cannot tell you how much we appreciate all the support, all the love on this stream just leading up to this. So there was like over 100 people waiting in the lobby here, so to speak, before we went live. Thank you guys so much. I know you're here to see these two guys go and tackle these layouts here. So we'll just kind of just leave it at that. But again, appreciate all the love and support from the last one. I know you guys are chomping at the bit to get into this. So why don't we keep moving along here? What do you say, Maddie?
Yes, absolutely. Do you guys want to say perhaps 2 or 3 sentences about yourselves? Brian, Kevin, just a little bit. Who are you? Why are you here?
No introductions needed, but just for the
no introduction. Yeah, technically no.
Go ahead, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. I'm Brian Coords. I'm a WordPress developer and focus on mainly using core WordPress. And I'm excited to be here. And I'm located on the West Coast, so it's kind of like early morning.
Yeah.
So if it takes me a little while to wake up, or I come off a little grumpy, it's a little early. But looking forward to digging into this and learning about bricks, because I've never really seen it in practice. So I'm excited.
Cool. And I'm Kevin Geary. I am a WordPress educator and the founder of Automatic CSS.
So what are we building today? Mark, do you want to bring up a screenshot?
For sure. Here, let me grab that real quick. Give me a second. Wasn't prepared for that. Do you have one there sitting? Actually, I can grab it right here. I got you. 2 seconds. Downloads. Good thing I just sent it to Maddie here. There we go. All right, I got you. Let me share my screen real quick. Cool.
Where's the number, by the way, of people in the stream?
I don't know if EVMux says that.
Yeah, I'm wondering the same. Yeah, it does. 213 right now.
Cool.
It's at the top right, but I can see it. I don't know if you guys
I think it's
can
only for you, probably.
Random thing about that, though. Sometimes I feel like those are off. Maddie, I got it shared on my screen. I don't know if you can pop me on.
Wonderful. There it is.
I can zoom in. Here she is, boys and girls. Ghost.org. I will say, though, if you go to ghost.org right now, this is not exactly what you're going to see. We had a couple back and forths with Brian and Kevin, and we all came to an agreement that there's a lot of websites that are really cool to build, could add a lot of functionality, but within this time frame, it doesn't make sense to build necessarily like the entire page here. So this Brian was nice enough to chop up the existing Ghost website into these specific, like, kind of 4-ish sections. So if you guys want to go through this, I can kind of go through it. But basically, header, main hero section here, a little bit of kind of like a blurb about, and then these cards, which can be kind of really interesting to talk about. A little help getting started, bento grid type action here. And then we have like a little built to last section, which is like some more info. And then just kind of a call to action here at the bottom. So nothing super duper complex, but a good mix of kind of seeing what the builders can offer, Bricks Builder and Gutenberg. And we're excited to kind of do this. So you can follow along on ghost.org, but just know that we're not building the entire site. This is just a screenshot that we're after.
Exactly. Yeah. Just going to say thanks to Kevin for suggesting this one.
Yeah.
It's a nice choice, and we still have a bunch of other things that we discussed, different websites that we discussed. We're going to save these for future streams. And as far as I'm concerned, Brian, I'm almost ready for you. I'm just going to have to open this real quick.
He's got the popcorn.
Very important. Just to make this clear, it says American style, and then below it says sweet, which makes no sense. It's either American style or it's sweet, so I don't get it. I have no patience for you barbarians overseas eating salty popcorn, but this is European style. Anyway,
we put sugar on everything and in everything in America.
Oh yeah,
so that's probably why.
The more sugar, the better.
They dipped it in corn syrup for you.
Yeah. Nice. Alrighty,
so Brian, show us some magic.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dig into this. So you guys all saw the demo site. I think Kevin and I both have the same idea, which is that we both work as people who build sites for other people, to match designs, to hand off to clients. This is not WordPress.com. I'm going to show you how you can do this yourself with no background in web development. I think that's not what either of us are really focused on. So that's not what you're going to see here. So what I have is a local development site running on, I'm trying out that WordPress.com Studio app. Seems pretty decent so far. And I'm just going to show you real quick before I dig into the block editor. The way that I work is I build a custom theme for a client. So I think that's a big difference you'll see between a page builder and Gutenberg, is that the block editor is meant to work with a custom theme, and you generally can pull an off-the-shelf theme, and it's going to be very opinionated in your designs. But if you're working in like an agency world or something, you're going to build your own custom theme for it. So this is not one of those like I took 2024 and made it look like this other site. So I'll switch over just to give you like a quick overview, but I do have like a custom theme. It's very basic, but it has like things like a build process that uses Sass, sort of like developer stuff. It has like, if I want a new block, it has a command line scaffold to make up a new block or something like that. It has things like theme.json to control all my styles and stuff like that. So this is very traditional core WordPress kind of approach, which is, to do a lot of your work in a theme and then see that theme come to life inside of the editor. And I'll also just note that beforehand, we all agreed we would put in like some basic fonts and colors and stuff like that ahead of time, so that you don't have to sit and watch me like muck around in theme.json, like adding the colors and stuff. So things like the color palette and all that stuff, like that's already kind of put in, just enough to kind of get us going. So do we want to pause and like talk before we dig into it, or are we good to do I just keep monologuing?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely already have some questions. I don't know how deep we want to get into it. We definitely want to make sure we keep it moving. But I mean, just as a clarification question, you're saying, Brian, that you did all this already? Like you created the custom theme and you put all this in here already? Like this is part of the process that we
Part
skipped?
of the process is most of like 99% of this theme is a scaffold that already exists. So you can go use it. I built it with another developer. A lot of people might use a starter framework like Sage or Genesis or something like that. This is just my theme that me and another developer built, Aruba. She probably did all the hard stuff. And we put it, and I use this to scaffold the project. So I come in and I change the colors and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be a kind of a dialogue too. Yes, I mean, let's make sure that if we have questions, I think, and
I would have had the same question.
We're monitoring the chat too, so people will have questions. But yeah, Brian, awesome stuff.
So it's sort of like a blueprint that you start off with every project, right?
Yeah, it's sort of it's an empty theme. It's very unopinionated. It doesn't really do anything except turn on a bunch of core stuff. Gotcha. But it does do other things, like it has a build process. Like I like to write Sass. I like to, one of the things that's great about the block editor is you can load CSS for specific blocks, and it'll kind of handle only loading it on the front end if that block is present. So that's built into this, where I can make little like Sass files for, I'm trying to click on like the screen share. I can make a Sass file for like a specific block and that sort of thing. And you'll see that CSS gets loaded specifically, and I can pull in these CSS variables that I know Kevin loves a lot, and show those as well. So that's just part of the build process. That scaffold out blocks, save all of my template parts and patterns, have them all kind of automatically synced there. All right, so I guess let's just dig into this.
Nice. We got some nice movement here in the chat. Love this. Love the drama. Love the back and forth.
I think we already have the first drama, but I kind of missed it. Really sure. So while you're building there, I'm just gonna say, like for me, my eyes are already glazing over. I'm both impressed and overwhelmed a little. Like perhaps to just give a little personal background, like I'm fairly decent at HTML and CSS, and everything you just showed me is like, wow. It's a different level. I remember I was at a WordPress meetup a couple months ago, and I spoke to somebody who was working with Gutenberg, because that was like we were making the rounds. What are you using to build websites? And then there was like one or two guys actually only in that who was using Gutenberg. And then I spoke to them, and they were like, they started talking to me about programming everything, and it is impressive. Let me say that much. Yeah. But I'm also seeing how it's not a page building experience that at least it wouldn't be for me. I wouldn't be able to pull this off.
Yeah, and as people are talking, I'll just kind of be populating content so that we're not here all day. But but I think that's important. I mean, Kevin talks about this, and I'd be curious to hear what he thinks. But like setting up a website, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that you're going to have development skills if people are paying you to develop their website. I think if you're trying to make a business to build websites, knowing the technical. Obviously, there's different levels of it. I'm not saying everybody needs to know every programming language, but I think it's pretty reasonable that people who are building websites should be expected to have some sort of technical, knowledge of what they're building. you can have differences of the approach. Do you like using, these different tools? Everybody has their preferences that way for sure. But I don't think that that's an unreasonable expectation. And like I said, this isn't like, hey, if you don't know how to build a website, you're going to learn from this, because that's not really, I think, the use case here.
Yeah.
Walk us through what you're doing now. So I'm seeing example, and I'm seeing the headline, independent technology for modern publishing. So you're sort of in a back end where you're just putting the content
Mm-hmm.
and doing some styling, but where is this going to lead us next? Like, just if you can give us a quick idea of the direction that we're going in.
Sure. So, yeah. So, for the sake of time, I'm going to build this all in one go in the block editor. For a normal situation like that, what we would do is build these as independent patterns. And I mean, you could do that from here. You can kind of click and start creating your patterns. But the idea here is you're going to build a pattern library of different components. And so what I've done here is I've just added a group so that I can do stuff like, to keep Kevin happy, I can make sure that it's set as a section element and put that section right there. I can set things like padding and stuff like that. That's all coming from, the presets that I've already put in the theme. I've already looked at the design. I've already decided, okay, these are the different presets I'm going to use for things like padding, stuff like that. I think the idea of like wide width padding, global padding, and alignment, and the way that Gutenberg approaches this is by far like the number one hurdle for most people, because it's, whatever the opposite word of intuitive is, that's what this approach is. And I'll admit that I don't think there's some work going on it in the next release that's going to make it a little bit better, but it's by far completely different than how other page builders approach this, because they start with a section and they work inwards from that. It's kind of like old Bootstrap or something, where you put in a container and then inside your container you decide what you're going to do. And Gutenberg inverts that, and it starts from your paragraph and works outwards, so that by default your content is narrow, and then it expands. Like, you have to actively choose to expand it from like a narrow sort of like blog post approach. So that's, by far that's going to be like the most different thing. Yeah. But other than that, like the only thing I've done ahead of time is like I put in my color palette and I put in the spacing ahead of time.
Gotcha. Yeah, Brian, love that context. If you want to, just kind of keep going through some of that stuff there. I want a couple notes here, Maddie. I think if you now that we're out of like the coding tiny text, if you want to throw our faces back on screen, I think that would be beneficial to the people, so we could all, the people could see our beautiful faces. That would be the first thing. Second thing is there is obviously a lot to cover here. So guys, if you have, I'm going to take a page out of Kevin's book here. If you guys have a question, throw a hashtag Q in there, so we could better see those, because that would be way better, so we could search that up, because I know there's a lot of stuff. We appreciate all the back and forth there, which is fantastic. So we can kind of go through it and then answer the questions as we're kind of chucking away at this here, which is
awesome. So the next section we have is this kind of like video. I'm sharing off of my like laptop monitor, so it's a little bit small, so let me know if that works. I figured it would be better to be zoomed in and sort of see that, but I've just added like a core WordPress video block, and I put that inside this container. And then like what we'll typically do is add, we'll add like color presets. So like in the background, I can put any group, I can give it like, colors from like their theme, or I can do gradients. So in this case, I've set up this kind of 50-50 gradient as part of their theme. I would normally do that for any sort of thing, or I could come in here and I could like manually fidget around with setting those colors, but I like to have it as part of the design system. So gradients and things like that are available. So let me close this really quick. It's like almost like too zoomed in, but I think you can get the approach here. And then I'll just do things like, play with the padding and stuff like that. So in this case, this one actually has 0 padding because the video goes like right to the bottom of it, but it gives us that sort of 50-50 approach. The other thing with Ghost is it's a very wide site. It's like a 1400 pixel wide site. So it's kind of goes bleed to the edge here, but you can kind of see that approach where you're seeing like half of the pink and then a nice video that's just going to loop and play in line.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, and then we have this sort of text call to action section right here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this in. So again, you can start from the section level and kind of work downwards, or you can paste content and then kind of like if you were in like Figma or Photoshop, like group it and do that sort of thing. So just to start, I'm going to paste this content in. And so you can see like content stays narrow, and that's kind of an accessibility thing. Like really wide content is just poor accessibility for users. But the other piece is that like this really is like, you know, coming from the world of like we want to make fancy blog posts, and now we've decided it's a page builder. So what I'm going to do with these two is I'm just going to go, I'm not going to sit here and mess around with like pixel sizes, but I think they did it something like in this case, I like to do my font sizes based on the heading sizes because all my clients want to do is take their H1 and make it look like an H3. So this is dependent on your design system. This is not a WordPress thing. You're sort of given the freedom to define what all your font sizes are. In my case, I just name them after headings because that's what clients typically relate to the most. So that's kind of one way to do it, but you can name your font sizes like small, medium, large. You can do custom font sizes if you want, that sort of thing. In this case, there's also like an option to do bold. So I'm going to do this kind of bold. And then this is kind of an interesting one because let's go here. It's like not full width, but almost full width, right? We have this kind of extra space right here. So what we want to do is we want this to be something where there's some extra space here, but it's not like just like a bunch of extra padding on one side that I got to deal with like responsive controls and stuff later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these inside of a group, and I'm going to make that group just wide. And then I know this is another place where people just look at it and they go like, I don't fully understand this. I would love to, if I could redesign this, I would. This thing about alignment with content width and stuff like that. But what I'm basically saying is like, I have a group, and I'll just show like this kind of outline view here. And inside I have two paragraphs, right? So I have a group, I have a couple paragraphs inside. Right now I'm saying I want my group to be wide. I don't want it to be full width, but I want it to get that like wide kind of like standard, matching the header, matching the footer, like that, just that wide content width that you'll see on a website. And then inside my blocks, they're still going to keep that content width, that's that narrow width that it's defined. And so with that, I can also like move them side to side. So to get that effect, what I would do is I'd move it to the side so everything just kind of floats to one side or the other, kind of like a flex control. And then I would just say custom for this pattern that I'm building out for this particular thing. I want this to be something where the content is like 1,000 pixels wide instead of 800 pixels wide, or whatever the, that I've defined for that. And then also like I'm doing 2x large for all my sections. So they're all kind of consistent on that padding, and I can tweak that globally later. So that gives me that effect of like, it's wide, it's bigger. It doesn't go all the way full to the edge. If I had like an actual Figma file, I'd go through and I'd like deal with all the sizes and stuff, but that's how you're going to get that approach. And then it's kind of nice because I'm not using padding to do it. So if I go down to like a mobile, it's going to just like fit. There's not going to be like all this extra space that I need to like deal with different responsive controls.
Nice. Maddie, can you throw us onto the side? I think it's kind of hard to see some of the stuff that's going on.
Yep.
Also, is there a way? I don't know if there is a way on EVMux to make a guest host or something. Maybe just look for that, just because there's going to be a lot of comments and stuff like that. We could probably highlight at some point. But
yeah, do you want to jump in, throw some comments real quick?
We got a lot of great questions here. Quick, I'll answer a couple of easy ones. Is there a time frame here per build? So yeah, I mean, generally about like 45 to 50 minutes. I think we started around the 10-minute mark with Brian. So probably around, I would say 30 more-ish minutes per. And I don't know, if Maddie, if you see any other comments, or if you guys, I know Kevin's
Let me see. Yeah,
there's
a ton.
I wish you could chat from inside this app. I've got to be like on my phone over here.
Yeah.
To respond to people? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't like that you can't respond. All right, I'll keep moving, and maybe we'll just do like more.
Please do keep moving through the chat, and I'm going to try to catch up and just bring up a couple of comments that that we respond to. But I'm unfortunately a little bit behind on that right now.
Okay.
Let me try something else. Meanwhile. because at least this might be helpful.
It is looking interesting though. I mean, obviously it's coming together here, Brian. I mean, like, I think the main thing that I know from, probably from like more people that watch Kevin's content and stuff that he'll address is just like the idea of the scalability, maintainability side. Like, there's a lot of things that, a client could ask you to change, and then it's like, if you built it in one way, you're going to be spending, like the next 4 hours, like changing it everywhere, making sure that it's changed everywhere, versus obviously we're just dealing with one layout here. But it sounds like you are hitting on some of those things, like with sizing and like you said, something about global padding and stuff like that. So how do you feel like just where Gutenberg is at right now in that regard? Like, do you feel like it's suitable, or do you feel like it obviously still needs work in certain areas? I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but what's the overall there?
Yeah. So what I would say is there's a few things kind of going in there. Number one is like, this is a design system. So if I need to change a color, a spacing, a font size or whatever, that's going to affect it globally because I'm going to change it. It's similar to like something like a Tailwind or something where you have a JSON configuration file. I mean, you can actually do all this in the site editor. I just don't do that. I like to use the actual code because what's going to eventually happen is, right, like say this is a pattern. I'm going to save this as a pattern. And what's going to happen is it's going to get flattened into a PHP file in the theme so that if I want to change the pattern in the future, I can. And what's also going to happen is typically for what I'm going to deliver is the client is going to get a locked version of this. And so I'm sorry, there's like the screen is a little distracting. What's going to happen is I'm going to give a locked version to the client, so they're not going to see all this stuff. So this stuff isn't for the client. This is for the person building the website. But what the client's going to see is a much more locked down version of it. And I can kind of show that as we get through this. Yeah. So like they're not going to be able to override these things. This is just the approach for the builder.
So Maddie, that's good that you put that little screenshot in the chat, that link. If you want to throw that link in the chat so people can pull up the
yes,
the
good idea.
model too.
Thank you.
Nice. So we're on the actual Ghost site here.
So these are the cards. Mm-hmm. I think this is definitely like the most unique section. I kind of go back and forth on how I would want to deliver something like this. But let's just add. So this is a grid. It's they have different approaches to how you can do the grid, like based on like, sizes and stuff like that. This is a newer kind of feature. I think it's still being worked out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I build it. And then you can see like what the actual final client experience would be for something like this. So I have a grid, and then I have this like one grid item here. And inside what I'm going to do is add a group and add an image. And I have all the images here. So we have this image of this dude.
Ali.
And then we're going to add another image for this little item here. And again, like this is me. This is not like what a client would be doing. So I have two images and I just need to absolute position one of them. So what I do is to make it simple, I might add something like an extra block style that adds some sort of stuff. So like this is a funny one where Gutenberg has a position and then they don't give you all the position options. So, let's be like 50% helpful and 50% annoying. Thank you.
Relative would be very handy right there.
Yes. So I have to add that, right? But, again, what I would so like on a normal site, I will have my own settings for a lot of these things that's already kind of built in. Because again, I'm like providing a curated experience. But in this case, I had to add like a little block style. So let's just add some CSS for a relative position. And then over here for this image, I have a couple different options where maybe I want it absolute positioned here or there or at the bottom just to match those like few design options. If I wanted to, I would probably spin up little custom sliders so they could like actually position it and control it if I really wanted to give that experience. But just for the sake of this, we're doing it. And then like, maybe I'll do stuff like add the radius and use the built-in shadow or something like that. It doesn't show up as much, but there's a little shadow on it. So that's really just two images and a group block and some custom CSS that's going to be built into my theme that I'm building for the client. And then what I would probably do is take this right here and I would create it as a pattern, and I'd probably lock it so that none of these controls are available to the client. So
Okay,
all they would get is, and I'll give like kind of a preview of that. What they would be able to do is they'd be able to come here and they'd be able to replace the image or like drag and drop an image onto either of these, but they're not going to be able to like mess with a lot of the other settings. This is one example of it. There's actually a really better example of this content locking that's going to be coming in the future version. That's even more streamlined and stuff, but you know, that one's a little bit more experimental.
the stuff you did on the side though with the sliders or like the positioning and things, like, are you saying that that is one of those instances where Gutenberg has the capability to do X, Y, Z, but it doesn't have the controls for it, so you had to manually like enable them, basically?
What I'm saying is like right now, the easiest thing that I could do if I wanted to would be to come over here and just add a class, right? Like add a different class, and then I would have that class in my CSS, and I would write all the CSS for it, and it would be over here and it'd be bundled in my theme. And that's what's kind of happening. So like I've just written a CSS class and you can apply it anywhere, and it's really just showing up. But what I'm saying is that if I were building this as like a more curated experience, I would build my own, like you can add your own buttons and stuff here with your own controls. And I would add, maybe I'd say like top, left, bottom, right, and I'd give them those controls and they could drag and drop them and they would see it like in real time move around the box or something like that. Like those are depending on the client and their budget and like how, you know, because the end goal for like our client is like, they're most likely a marketer who handles design. They probably use Figma. They probably have a marketing department. They have brand guidelines. They have these sorts of things, and they need to be able to match these sorts of things in their own like editorial workflow. So,
Okay, so those are all right. Well, that's a really important distinction though, because that always gets lost in the conversation. That is your typical client, right? That you work with. Like they're gonna have all that, right? Like you're gonna be normally handing it off, and they're gonna be managing some of the stuff with people that pseudo technical, at least, like kind of know what they're doing, or not really technical, but like they know their way around like a CMS.
yeah, exactly. Like they're not the person that's going to be editing this website is not a person who runs a restaurant and they want to be able to change the content on their bed. This is a person who was in a marketing department of a large company, and they want a curated experience of like, how can I control my website and use all these designs and see visually what I'm doing, but not break anything and not break out of the pattern. So like a lot of this complexity gets stripped away before they get to see it. And I control exactly what settings they want to be able to use or not use.
I could definitely see the use case. Yeah.
Yeah, they're technical. They're part of a large team. You know, it's a different use. And that's why, you know, you suddenly see Automatic, you know, launching new programs for agencies, touting all their enterprise stuff, like all that sort of stuff. Like you can see where they're going with this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a different situation than I think some of us are accustomed to. Like you mentioned with the restaurant thing, that's you know, there's two different audiences there, two different end users, clients. So it's just different. It's just a different situation.
By the way, for the chat, I'm not judging. I just have resting asshole face. So it's not. Don't read into it.
I'm just gonna make one of these cards. This is a H3. Then I think they just put it back on their like whatever font size. This is inside of this grid. There's some other stuff we can do, like in the grid itself. I might want a little padding on the side because I think it actually doesn't align. That's how they do it. With the grid, you can also here. Let's take this item. Let me take this one here and just duplicate it so we can see what three of them look like. So then in the grid itself, you have controls like block spacing, which is basically gap. Like they call it block spacing. They should call it gap because it's like row and column gap. So I can kind of, you know, using my presets, like define what the gap is between these different things. And then I can come in here and I can change, these. And I don't think I'll go through and like actually swap out all the images, but just kind of like, maybe these are the 3 options I give them, like that. And then I take this whole thing and I save it as a pattern, or maybe I take just this whole card and I save it as a pattern. And then maybe I think they had actually even spacing, but what I would probably typically do is like I'd tighten up the spacing here and make that a separate element, something like that. But that's essentially how I would create the card experience for a client.
Definitely have a couple questions real quick on that before you
Yeah.
head off. Is this something that you don't have to do this right now, but like, is this something that you could query loop realistically? Could you like think of a scenario to query loop this right now with this workflow? Like if you wanted to have different, pictures there all generated dynamically.
Yeah. So I think that was an interesting, like when we were talking offline, planning this out, we narrowed the scope and we ended up not doing anything with like custom post types, custom query loops and stuff like that. I think that would be like an entire episode just for one component based on a query loop and how you deal with that sort of data, because it is interesting. But yeah, I mean, you could do like, if like right now it's just cards, right? But like if this was testimonials or something that you do want to have like a separate post type for, and then have a query loop that pulls them in, that's definitely something you could do. And then this would be like, instead of being a random image, it would be pulling in like the thumbnail. Like there's a block to just pull in the post thumbnail and pull in the post title and pull in the excerpt and pull in a read more link or something. And you would pull them from a custom post type.
I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give the query loop a shot.
You're gonna do the query loop for this?
I'm gonna query loop it.
I got one. I got one more question on that though. Like if you're building those, right, and you, let's say you use that card multiple places, like are you able to? Did you just duplicate those to get that, or did you have that stuff set globally, like literally like the padding in between the heading and the text and the, you know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted to add, let's make it easier. If you wanted to add an icon above creators, publishers, businesses, do you have to do that independently 3 times, or is there a way? Or, like just adjust other aspects of it as well?
So the way it works is, and there's a few different things there. Number one, I just duplicated it because I'm just more showing like how you're building out structure. If what I would normally do is, or what's going to be the case in the next release, which was supposed to be this release, but is not yet, is you are going to have the ability to define a pattern. So I would make a pattern of this whole column, right? And that would be in their pattern library, and they'd come over to their patterns and they would look and they would pick it out of the pattern library and add it wherever they want. But it kind of depends on like what we've talked about, because do you want just one of these by itself somewhere on your website? That would be kind of weird. It's really meant to be 3 in a row, right? Yeah. So maybe I'd make the whole row a pattern, because like, what is the context where they're just going to put one of these somewhere, like that's not really like part of the design or something that I would want them to do. So maybe I make all 3 of them a pattern. But as far as like future syncing, so once you make a pattern, you can have all your patterns exported and saved as PHP as part of your theme. So they're now controlled in your theme. And the difference is if I make a change in my theme, it doesn't change all the patterns that are on the site, right? Because they've already put the content in the page. And if I change the original, it's not going to change all those. But in the next WordPress release, we are going to have that ability to where the pattern is, I might build it here, but I'm going to click a button. It's going to sit in my theme as a PHP file. And when I change that PHP file, it changes across the site globally. Because at the end of the day, yeah, this is in the database, but WordPress is always running PHP before it renders any content. So you can always control it. So the short answer is not yet, but that's coming. And that's why we're about, another few releases probably for me saying like, hey, this is like something I would recommend to everybody.
For sure. Yeah. We'll definitely have you back on for another 202 with patterns, because that's a whole game changer there. Totally.
3 hours plus.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think the next is the little bento area, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So, and then actually, let's give this, I'm not used to working on such a little screen, but let's do, for this whole grid, let's give it that like top and bottom padding. Let's save our changes in case something breaks. Okay. So the next thing is that bento grid area. Let's start here. So we have a full, so we basically always start with a group. Oh yeah, this was something Kevin was talking about on Twitter. So like, I actually normally have extra things that are scaffolded in here. So like, I've made an example of a section. So right here, this is called a section. I can click it and it's literally the same thing, but all it does is it presets it being a section element. So like, this is something I might have in my toolkit of my build process, like my starter. And so I actually have one that does where it's like, it starts you with a section that's full width with a nice little container inside. So you can like kind of get that effect. But this is stuff that you can do when because you can kind of control all the blocks and stuff that come in. So I don't have to manually come in here and make a section if I want to make a section. So bento box. Again, I want all my things like that. Like this, I would also have a preset. Like I wouldn't be doing this every time manually. I'd put that as a preset for my section before I even start. And then we have a heading. And then for this, I want content width. And I want this to be wide. And help getting started. And then let's build out this grid. This one's going to be interesting. And I think I have about 10 minutes left to do it. And throw me some questions if you have any.
I'm wondering if perhaps this is a good moment to just take a very quick break, and kind of go through, because I've been reading the chat, so I'm sort of like with one ear kind of hearing what you guys are doing, or what you're doing, Brian. And again, I'm still. I mean, I'm thinking, even if I had actually followed more attentively, I would still. Here's what throws me off a little. I'm just going to take a high level view. Here's what throws me off a little. Is I'm still waiting to see the website. I'm not seeing the website. Like I might be. This might be just a simple-minded thing to say, but I'm seeing it. I'm sort of seeing a back end, and I'm not seeing. It's not looking like the website. So that would be interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Like this is the front end.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That we've built so far.
So this is.
And I put a little fake menu up here just so you could kind of see, like I added a couple items this is just the core WordPress menu.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking, like, as far as like the impression that it leaves on me, I kind of remember like writing websites in a text editor, with like Dreamweaver, and then having another browser window open where I could just press F5 and just look at what I'm building, which is cool. And I think with what you're doing, we're kind of going back to that. So I'm seeing how this is a very different world from the page builder world, be it Bricks or Elementor or Beaver or whatnot, where you're actually sort of building on the front end. And yeah, I mean, for now, I don't have a value judgment here. It's just an observation. It's one of the things I noticed.
Yeah, I think that's a key difference between the page builder block editors. The block editor really is trying to give you the experience of editing your content in a one-to-one of the front of your site. So like, if I take this away, like this.
Okay, yeah, then we're really close now. Yeah, I see that.
Should really feel, and actually in the future versions, I'm not going to turn it on now, but you can actually turn it on so that you see like this here. Like this is kind of old school WordPress where you have your post title up here, but
yeah, that's one thing that threw me off a little. Okay,
that's not always going to be the case, and you can actually toggle into preview right now, but like you can actually switch over and you'll see it exactly with the heading, and you'll edit the post title and the sidebar with everything else.
Okay.
And while we're here, let me just filter. I start a couple of comments, and I want to bring them up real quick. So Jeff said, I kind of wish they would show the boring setup stuff, like getting up the theme and choosing the colors and fonts. It's interesting because, yeah, we made a conscious choice against that beforehand, because we don't want to, we don't want to kind of waste time with that. But Jeff isn't the only one who said that. I think there were 2 or 3 more. And I'm thinking, especially for what you're doing right now, Brian, this would be interesting to see how you got to the point where you started. So yeah, that's one. Then the other one I liked is, like David said, so a custom theme is something a pro site builder might do, but not how a normal user would use the site editor, right? Or is this how it's supposed to be used? And most of us just miss that. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I covered that already, but essentially,
Okay.
me and Kevin are not, we are pro site builders. So that is the approach that I'm taking here. I'm not taking the approach of like, hey, you can use WordPress to spin up your own website off the shelf with no technical experience.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would agree
people
with
pay
that.
us to build websites. That's the approach.
I would agree with that. I actually really appreciate the way that Brian's doing this, because like it seems like this is how you would deliver this to a client. I love the concept of like being able to edit the, extend, for lack of a better term, like the functionality of the sidebar, and like extend it for certain things, tighten it down for other stuff. There's obviously more than one way to do that, and all sorts of different page builders. But to me, that paints Gutenberg in a little bit of a different light, just because I feel like the main, nobody's gonna like the term marketing of Gutenberg, but the main marketing of that is it's for the average WordPress user. But the way Brian is showing here, I think it could be, you could be used in other ways as well. I mean, obviously, it could be used to deliver stuff that's like more curated, which is a good word that I've heard Brian use. So,
I mean, if you're just like a person who wants to build their own website with WordPress and you're non-technical, are you going to grab an off-the-shelf theme that looks close enough and it's, and then just drop in your content and stuff like that because you're not a designer, you're not technical or something? Or are you going to go open up Bricks or Beaver Builder and try to create a custom design? Like our people is like the guy running the pizza store, like buying a Figma design from a designer and trying to implement it pixel perfect from scratch. Like, I don't think that's a real world scenario. So I don't like the idea that I'm going to match somebody else's design pixel perfect and I have no technical experience. I get that maybe there are some core WordPress people who think that's a scenario we should build for. I just don't agree with that. And I think that's why you're seeing it suddenly be like, oh, this is why this is useful in large agencies with media departments and stuff like that. Because I don't really believe that there's like mom and pop, store owners cracking open Elementor, or that there should be, honestly.
yeah, fair point. Quick question for you, Brian, while we're getting relatively close to time here, maybe like another 10 or so.
Yeah.
I know we got a couple more sections. Do you have, by chance, if you worked on it previously, do you have something that you could show just the last like little bit of it too? And kind of work through the workflow of what that's like?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And I guess like what Peter says here, like I've seen a couple comments where people, I think there's that discontent that people have with the workflows with Gutenberg. It is clearly out there and it's on display in this chat. So we do have these different philosophies clashing. And I find it interesting because at the beginning you did say, if you do build a website for your clients, you're expected to have a fairly broad understanding. But I'm actually curious, for somebody like me who's again good at CSS and HTML, what other languages would you recommend I even learn to get to or anywhere close to the level that you're doing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Yes, I think that if people are paying you to build websites, you should know how to build websites. I don't think that's a controversial take.
Well, yeah, of course.
I think if people are upset that I wrote code, don't be a web developer. I don't know what to say to that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, that to me is a bonkers opinion that I want to be a web developer and sell websites and not write code. The other piece of it is that, I think there is this marketing from the core WordPress that, anybody can do this, anybody can do that. And I think that, sure, you can go in and mess around with all that sort of stuff. But like at the end of the day, if you want a website that's important for your business or important for your success, then you want to trust that it's going to work properly, that it's going to be optimized for performance and SEO and accessibility and all these different things, and not get you into trouble or get you into legal trouble or go down when you have a bunch of people coming and buying stuff from you, or when you have a bunch of like search driven traffic or something, you don't want your site going down. I think like there's a reason that you should trust professionals to do certain things like that. And so I guess like, that's a difference, because like I don't work at a WordPress hosting company who needs a lot of DIYers spinning up websites and paying them $30 a month. So that's why I'm going to probably take a different mindset than I think if you got somebody from, a hosting company to come here who maybe has a different opinion about it. But yeah, all these different tensions exist, there's not like a solid answer for that.
Yeah, it's true. But you did say an important thing that like if you want to have a build, first of all, yeah, you want to sell websites, you need to build them in a way that they tick a lot of boxes, like especially like living in Germany, which is what I do, being GDPR compliant, like stuff like that. You need to have that figured out. So I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, and I think also like if you like using bricks, then use bricks, I guess. Like that's good. Like you have a tool, you like it works for you, it's designed for you as the core audience and for your business case, then that's a good thing. And that's because of WordPress. Like WordPress does all these, WordPress makes post types, WordPress makes users, WordPress makes security, WordPress handles all that stuff so that bricks can be here for the next 20 years. And Elementor, which is, a massive company and is making a lot of money. All these things exist. And I don't understand the sort of like tribalism that exists. That's why I appreciate Kevin, who I think, is here to like reach out and share. So let me pull open a built version of the page.
Okay. Thank you.
And take like the last 2 minutes, I think, and then I'll jump off.
Yeah.
So this is one where I built it. This has the bento sort of option. So this, basically this is a grid. It's nothing too exciting. Whoops, sorry. Zoom out there. There's a grid, and inside of that grid, there's a bunch of different things. One of the other things is I'll come in and I'll just name all of this stuff. It's kind of like a Figma or Photoshop. Like I like to name my layers or something like that, so I can sort of keep track of the structure of the site. But in here, there's a heading, there's a grid, there's some different stuff here. There's some buttons. There's some really cool things that WordPress does where, like, for example, this was a link, but you can like basically transform your links into buttons with like one click and stuff like that. There's a lot of cool stuff we didn't get into. The other piece that is coming is the ability to, like I said, hide all of this so that all of and this is something we have done, where your client literally can just come in here and click on the text and change it. And they don't get these little toolbars, and they don't get the sidebar, and they don't get any of that stuff. They just come in and they just change all of the text and content and images, and you've locked down the layout of your landing page. And so I think that's where we're going to see the power, because it's not like, hey, I have to go to some page with a bunch of text custom fields like we used to build sites with like ACF fields in the past, and your client has to go in and be like, all right, which field corresponds to which piece of data on the front end of their website, and back and forth. It's a one-to-one visual representation, and they literally just come in and they change the text and pop it in. And so this is all core. And then like the last thing is like, there's also a ton of ecosystems built on top of Gutenberg, like Cadence and stuff like that, that are going to look a lot more like bricks. And I'm not doing that in this demo, but that's also a viable option. But yeah,
and we definitely like to showcase them, by the way. Generate blocks, all of that. If this stream continues after this episode, we'll see. This is definitely on our list.
This is going great. What are you talking about, Maddie? What's
yeah, it's going awesome. I'm really loving it.
That's very interesting with the bento. What about is there anything interesting in the last section there with the we talked about the cards there?
Yeah, this one's pretty boring, I'll be honest. Just some text and stuff. Some ways in which you kind of like handle text that sits off on one side or whatever, but I think we kind of covered all of that. The piece that you're not seeing that I'm not going to show here is how I would convert this to a pattern, and I would lock it down so that they have the ability to add these patterns to pages wherever they want, but they don't have the ability they don't see all of the UI. And at the end of the day, it's like the difference here is like, really, it looks like the front of my website, and I can click and move things around in a way that is actually, all of this is like serialized data. So like one cool use case of this is like, I've done where you build this out, but because it's all like structured HTML that's serialized, they have a mobile app, and their mobile app can pull in all the same blocks and parse it itself. And you can have somebody build all their content in WordPress, and that content exists on a mobile app and on a TV app and all that stuff. So there's all these more opportunities when the data is really like consistent and serialized across the board, compared to like HTML and CSS themselves, which are very loose, forgiving languages, and a very weird, sort of unstructured languages. Like at the end of the day, all of this is just like one big nested object that we can do kind of crazy things with across different platforms. But I will say if ask me if I think that they've done a perfectly good job on this, like, no, I have a lot of complaints, and I would say about 50% of the stuff that I put online is me complaining about the block editor. So
For sure. Appreciate it. Can you do me a favor and just click the open a new window just so people can fully see it? I know it's pretty much the same, but it's just the that
I have a public link to.
Okay.
So I'll put that in the chat when I have a second. But I use that WordPress.com studio app, and they give you like a thing where it'll put it on a free demo site for you. So I'm going to share that free demo site link, and you can come and see. I didn't get to like the footer or anything like that, but you can just kind of come and see an example of it.
Awesome. Well, Brian, we really appreciate this. Thank you so much, brother. I think we learned a lot, especially on the workflow side of it, because I think there was a lot of tidbits in there that you gave that I don't think people really knew about Gutenberg and kind of all the things that you could do with it. So appreciate it, brother. Looks great.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir. Hey, let's get some clap emojis in the chat for Brian, please, everyone. Love that. And I guess we will just switch on over. Maddie, if you want to kind of go ahead and do that.
I don't have Kevin's screen here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me get it here. Let's go. I want to say I'm very proud of my little 4K camera because it has not overheated yet.
Why would you say that?
But if you lose me halfway through, my video halfway through.
So that second time you blacked out was another chicken wing?
Well, actually, I've been just trying to give it a little rest here and there, you know?
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Giving the camera a little rest.
Smart.
Let me know. We had to join in Chrome, but I'm building an arc, so
yeah.
Can you guys see that properly?
It's there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
At some point, I was asking people whether they prefer a full screen with no faces or faces, but I didn't see the answers. So I'm going to watch this.
A few people said no faces, but
no faces.
It's because they wanted to, I guess, get maximum screen realism.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. So I'm definitely going to maximize the screen and then just bring in the faces every now and again.
Yeah, that works. All right, you guys want me to just go ahead and get started?
Yes, please.
Let's go.
Okay. This is the stack right here. So we have Bricks Builder, which is obviously a theme, and then essentially just 3 plugins. So Automatic CSS Frames and ACF Pro. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop in, and I like to work fast. I'm just going to kind of sprint through this. I also like, as a requirement, talk to myself while I build. So you can stop me or interrupt me or ask a question or whatever you want to do as we go. The other thing I was thinking about doing was, obviously, if we use frames for, everything here, we're probably, that would essentially be considered cheating. So I'm going to do this for just this, because we have all of these things are basic patterns, right? And that's the whole point of frames, is that it's a basic pattern library. So you're going to find a pattern that roughly matches exactly what you need to build. And then it all has BIM classes attached to it. So you can go ahead and start styling things from there and make it yours, and you're good to go. It saves you, 50, 60% time, whatever. But I'm just going to do it for this section right here. And as frames users know, and I guess the other thing too is, as you're watching this, just understand that some of this is Bricks Builder that you're watching. A lot of it is Automatic CSS. This isn't vanilla Bricks. So Automatic CSS is installed in the stack. All I've done though so far is I set up the colors, which I'm happy to show people how I set it up. Typography is set up, spacing is set up. That's essentially all that's been done inside of here. But we do have a tool called AutoBim where I can essentially rename these classes and make them mine. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm going to go ahead and put in, let's go border, let's go box shadow. And I just want to do, I saw Brian, I think he used a gradient. So I'm just going to be a little different. Let's go 0. And I think we're going to want minus 200. And we're going to inset this. All right, 3, 4, something like that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to check this on mobile too. But we'll go ahead and get rid of the media there. I'm going to go ahead and drop in a video. And any questions like from the chat that are, I can't obviously see the chat. So, you know, feed me anything that you've got coming in. I'll do my best to answer as I go.
Yep.
There's one that's install. Do you install custom fonts in ACSS or Bricks?
No, you install those in Bricks.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jeff, you might want to Google, is it Web Fonts Loader? Matthias Altman Web Fonts Loader. Just take a look at that. Read how it works. It's fairly quick to understand, and it really makes it a breeze to use custom fonts in Bricks. It makes it so much easier than the current implementation that comes with Bricks.
We'll definitely keep moderating the chat here and kind of checking on things, but I'm gonna be 100% honest, Brian. If you're like, from your eyes, I think your eyes are probably the most, like you said that you haven't used Bricks and stuff like that. So like, this is to give a real true perspective of what we're trying to do here. Like, your perspective is probably the most valuable. You know, Maddie and I, like, we've used Bricks. Kevin is obviously a master of Bricks, ACSS and everything like that. So like, I think you and anybody in the chat that's not familiar with it, like, would 100% be very interesting to get your perspective, kind of as us looking at Gutenberg, because it's the same thing. So if you have anything, I think that'd be very valuable for the audience.
Yeah, my first question is, does Bricks have a light mode or is it dark mode only?
No, they do. Yeah,
They do.
Ooh.
yeah. I just prefer the dark one.
Dark mode.
Yeah. I'm just going to call this arrow link. Just going to give it a class. This is the workflow from what everybody saw is going to be very, very different, obviously. So this is a class first workflow, very heavy on CSS classes, very heavy on CSS variables. All of the right clicking that I'm doing, the context menus that are coming up, like I right click here. This is all essentially part of automatic CSS. It's not part of Bricks. And I'm able to access parts of the framework very quickly, right? So for example, here, this is actually not a heading. This is a paragraph that needs to look like a heading. So I've added a paragraph tag, and the H2 class doesn't just give me the H2 size. It actually gives me all of the H2 styling from the website. So that keeps everything kind of in sync, even for stuff that's not actually a heading. All right. And then this one, just want it to be bigger. So we're just going to come in and add the text L class there. So we're just going to get large. Essentially, automatic CSS uses t-shirt sizes for everything. So small, medium, large, extra large, etc. Like the width here. If we just type in width, it's going to find my classes, and I can come in probably an XXL, and that's going to get that job done right there. I think the cards are going to be part of this section also. So I'm going to add, let's go ahead and add a container in here as well. And that's going to put one under here. The cards are probably the thing that I wanted to tackle the most. And everybody that's watched my videos knows, like, you know, big proponent of dynamic data, big proponent of query looping. This is actually a very interesting scenario because, yeah, you can query loop these three things, but the placement of these, what we'll call accent images, I guess, because they're unique to every single card, we have to have a way to somehow control that, even though you only have one source element like inside of the query loop. So I brainstormed that a little bit, and that's, you know, I was excited to, you know, kind of do this part here. So let's do, I'm going to call them verticals, like they're essentially marketing verticals, right? That's what you would call them in marketing. So I'm going to call this a verticals grid, and then I'm going to add a block, which is going to be my verticals card. And then essentially I just want the general structure. So we're going to go media wrapper, content wrapper. Obviously media is going to go inside of the media wrapper. Then we're going to have a heading. We're going to have a paragraph, and we're going to have a link. So I'll hop back in, and we will go, let's go block. So that's going to be our wrappers. Inside of that media wrapper, I'm going to go with an image. Inside of the content wrapper, get our heading. What did I just click? Okay, I went back to Ghost. Let's go heading and let's go text. This is actually, I'm probably going to use like a WYSIWYG field for that in the dynamic data. So I'm actually not going to make it a paragraph right now because it'll make it a paragraph when the WYSIWYG content comes in. Let's go ahead and let's see if Bricks is copy paste. I'm always on local, but I'm on Insta WP. So yeah, there we go. Okay, let's take off the text L and let's bring this in. Okay, link text. Good, perfect. Okay, and I'm essentially going to use AutoBIM again here. So I'm going to make sure that every element in my card has a class. And then while I'm here, I'm going to take the time to just make sure that they have proper names as well. So this is going to be media wrapper. This is going to be our media. This is going to be our content wrapper. Our heading's fine. We're going to call that a description. We'll call this a CTA. I do want to sync the labels so it organizes my structure panel while it creates the classes for me. And then I can go ahead and get to building. So we'll actually pause there. I need to go back and we're going to get the dynamic data going for this. So we'll go to ACF, post types, add new. Hopefully ACF works without the license key. Does anybody know if that's, I didn't steal this copy, by the way. I do own ACF. Okay. We'll call this verticals, vertical, and I always like it to be plural there. I think that's all we're going to need essentially. Let's go ahead and add new vertical. I think we want to call this creators. Let's go ahead and hit publish. Just going to hop out of there for a second and go to ACF field groups, add new field group. All right, let's go verticals. I'm going to make this is going to be our WYSIWYG, and that's going to be our vertical description. We're going to add a field. I'm going to add an image here. Okay, bang. And we're going to call this accent image 1. And I'm just going to duplicate that. And that should make it accent image 2. And then I'm going to assign this to our verticals. We'll go ahead and save there. Let's go back in. Verticals, creators. Okay, let's hop over to Ghost. Here's our description. And then we need that dude. And we need, I actually don't think I have that as an image. Let me go to... Oh, you know what? I think this Pro Mouse is it blocking my ability to screenshot? Hold on. Okay. Yeah, it is. I can't screenshot right now. Can you guys still see my mouse without that thing on, though? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's add this image here. And I don't think I had that one, but I'm just going to use this for right now. It's gonna, allow us to get the job done. Let's go in and bring this guy in. That's going to be our featured image. We'll go ahead and hit update. Okay. Now, none of that data is in the builder right now, so I'm just going to refresh the builder. Going to come down, and in Bricks, I mean, they make this very, very, very easy. Go ahead and query loop, query, post type, verticals. I think we're going to have to see what's going on with our order. I don't know if we're going to need descending or ascending yet. Let's go post title. Bring that in. I'm going to take this verticals grid and actually turn this into a grid. So we'll add a class called verticals grid. We're going to go display of grid. We're going to give it a grid gap, which is a contextual utility in automatic CSS. And since we need 3 of them, we'll just go 3. I'm going to come down to this breakpoint, probably right here. We're just going to go ahead and grid 1 and stack those. Okay, let's go back. And all we need now is some extra verticals. So creators, let's go. Ghost is publishers and businesses. All right, publishers. I think that's this guy. I think accent 1 is what, that? I'm just guessing here. Accent 2 is a book, right? Yeah, don't look up. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right, publish that. I don't want to spend too much time just like, bringing in content, but I think people do want to see, a lot of people I feel are afraid of like CPTs and dynamic data, and it's just watching. It actually doesn't slow you down all that much to do it like this. And the tremendous value that you get out of doing it this way, because as you notice, like on Ghost's site, all of these have a URL attached to them. So the CPT gives you that already, and it's a themable or templatable URL. It allows you to query loop all of this. So you're building a dynamic website. You're not building a static website. Let's do businesses here. Businesses. Yeah.
Johnny Cakes, can you do nested queries in Bricks? Yes, you absolutely can.
Yeah. Light work. Okay. Buffer. Let's go add image. Find buffer. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
speaking of CPTs, definitely watch Mark's show on that. Like he's doing a YouTube video series on that. It's really highly recommended if you're just starting out with that.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to pull in the featured image into this spot right here. This is going to be our description. So vertical description for this post title. Actually need this to be these cars need to be H3. Okay, and then all we need is, first of all, we need a period after the name. Okay, so you can just drop in a period right after. That's going to add that in. And then explore ghost 4 and then the name of the thing. So here we're going to say explore ghost 4 and then the post name, right? So the name of the vertical, right? So for businesses, all right, that's all good there. So essentially, we've got a responsive, query looped, dynamic data driven card. Now, the hard part of this is how we're going to bring in those accent images and then control their position. And so this is going to be a little bit more technical. We are going to get a bit into the weeds here. But that's, I think that's what people come for, right? So, all right, let's go ahead. And this is another reason why I use media wrappers on everything. They just seem to constantly come in handy. So I'm going to add 2 images in here. And we're going to give these, this is going to be a verticals card, double underscore. These are going to get 2 classes. They're going to get accent image, okay? Both of them need to get accent image because there's essentially going to be some shared styles between these, but then there's also going to be styles that are unique to these things. So I need some sort of unique identifier, like this is going to be accent image 1. And then we're going to have accent image 2 over here. And so I'm going to bring in this with the -2. And so I have a class that's going to give me global control. I also give me a class that's uniquely identifiable for the other one, right? So, or each one independently. On the media wrapper here, I'm going to go position relative on this. And then the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go straight to conditional logic for image 1. Because what we don't want to do, like let's say somebody does add a CPT where there are no accent images. We can't be trying to load accent images when there aren't any, right? So I'm going to go dynamic data, and I'm essentially going to check for accent image 1 and say we're only going to load it if accent 1 is not blank. And then I'm going to go to accent image 2. I'm going to go back to conditions, essentially do the same thing. So we're going to go to dynamic data, and we will go to accent image 2. Does not equal, okay? Then we'll load that in. Perfect. All right. I also want to actually bring in accent image 1. So we'll get the dynamic data here, pull in accent image 1. We'll go here and we will pull in accent image 2. Okay, that's perfect. All right. Is everybody lost in the chat yet sufficiently?
I gotta jump in here for a second.
Yeah.
Brian, obviously Kevin is a wizard at this, and he's going super fast. He knows what he's doing here. But I have a question for you, because obviously you're the guy on the other side of this here right now with looking at this. What is your thoughts on like bricks? And correct me if I'm wrong, how many times have you like actually seen bricks like literally in use? Again, Kevin is above average at using bricks, but like, what is your thought? Like, do you have any thoughts on like the UI, the UX, like just the way in which the tool is, like as somebody that's not normally using bricks?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do the demo and it gave me an error page, so I didn't get a chance to play with the actual tool. I mean, obviously, I think there's a difference where the block editor is really trying to give you one tool that can be used by both sides of the content, like and like that's obviously making it a little harder to do. Whereas like this, I'm guessing that the client doesn't come in here and edit any of this. Like, I'm very curious to see what the final experience is of the client editing it. I like the focus on dynamic data. to me, like the verticals, I'm kind of up in the air on whether I see the value of the custom post type for that specific situation, but I'm glad that you're doing it so I can see what it looks like. But yeah, I mean, it's clearly a very defined, like Bricks has a very clear idea of who's using it. And so things like that ACF integrations like that obviously make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I've only been using it with pods, which seems to be like sort of more like an underdog or not really being used that much, and it works flawlessly as well. So, whatever CPT tool you use, I think it will be compatible quite well.
Yeah, and
I found it interesting. Sorry, please go ahead.
I would just say the other piece is that with WordPress core, like an ACF integration isn't going to happen because ACF doesn't do things the core way for the most part. So like they're not going to go make an integration with some proprietary company as part of WordPress core. You'd have to find a plugin for that, right? Or ACF is actually kind of handling all that and stuff. But if I were doing this, I would use core WordPress, like registering a post type, core WordPress to register my post meta and stuff like that. Like that would be the experience I would do.
Right. I really liked Overnight Website's comment here saying, similar to someone else's comment about, so I can't use Gutenberg unless I'm a developer. This is way more technical. It's very interesting because just like looking at what Kevin's doing, I feel right at home. I'm like, okay, this works. This makes total sense to me. Even though I'm still reading the chat at the same time. But and with Gutenberg, I kind of felt more lost. So it's interesting to see how we really we seem to settle. Perhaps we just find the tools that work for us, and we just end up using them, right? And then we're like, I can go there. I feel at home in this tool. But if these other tools, even if I'm shown them, I mean, I will rewatch the stream with my wife tonight, and then perhaps get a better understanding of what Brian was doing earlier in Gutenberg. But
Yeah,
still,
I have no idea what I'm
this
looking
feels
at.
like a mountain to climb, right?
I feel the same. I feel what you guys felt when I was working. Like I have no idea what anything is happening right now. I'm just watching a mouse fly across the screen.
Well, the one thing I would say though is, again, Kevin is Kevin. He's flying, right? But my thing is, the one way that I look at that is that all of the things that are in this UI, I feel for Bricks, is I feel like most of the stuff, like when Kevin opens the style panel, those are like CSS properties. Like they're named the way that you would look if you were writing CSS. That's what you would literally basically write, like the name of the property and then the value that you literally toggle. So my thought is that definitely is kind of developer centric in a way, because if you knew CSS, then hypothetically you could come in here and you could know, right? So I totally get how that's not beginner focused. But as far as like a one-to-one, as far as what you would expect, I feel like what Core does is definitely like rename a lot of things. That's like, oh, this is a group. I would probably call this like a column or a container or a section or something like that, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm just saying that there are different tools in that way, is the way that I kind of, I don't know, like just process that.
I agree with that. Like name the thing with the CSSs. That would be nice. Yeah, I agree.
Before I lose you guys on the next section, so essentially what I've done here is with the accent cards. So I went into, let's go to accent image 1, for example. So I just put some shared styles for absolute positioning and gave these essentially default styles. So if we look at accent image 1, for example, the way that I did this is I just declared an inset. So that's going to give me all axis positioning. And I gave it accent image 1 position, which is a dummy variable because I'm going to use that when I manually position the images. But since I'm using a variable, I get a fallback value as a potential or a possibility. So I just put in essentially what are default positions for accent images. This way, when somebody does come in and add a new card, and they just do this in the back end, you don't even have to be in the builder. So you just go into ACF, add your card, fill out the fields, hit publish. It'll show up in the grid. It'll show up everywhere on the website. And if you add any accent images, they're going to be in default positions with a default size. Now, if you want to go in and say, oh, I actually want to adjust those, that's what we're going to do next. And this is yet another kind of like, it's the next step in, and by the way, you saw like dynamic data, just getting the cards on the screen, very easy. really all of the complexity and complication is from these accent images. That's it. If we would have been done with this a long time ago if this didn't have manually positioned accent images. And that's why I wanted to tackle this, because you don't have to abandon the query loop. I think a lot of people would just say, oh, I can't do that with a query loop and dynamic data, so I guess I just can't do that. But you actually can. It's just, it takes a little bit of an extra step. So one thing I need is to be able to identify which card is which when I'm writing some styling instructions, right? So the way that I'm going to do that, I like to do data attributes for this. So we're essentially just going to say data vertical card, and then the value of the card is going to be the name of the card. And I'll go to the front end just so we're not completely lost on what's happening there. So I'm just going to inspect. And you can see right here, it just puts data vertical card equals businesses and publishers and creators, which it's offending my OCD that those are queried backwards. So I'm just going to go ascend those real quick. Okay. All right. Now we're good. So now I have a way to identify those cards, and we can use a data attribute in CSS just like we use anything else. I'm going to come down to verticals. We'll go CSS. Now, the one downside of all of this, and I've been harping at Bricks for months and months and months on this, is they don't render data attributes in the canvas, at least very well. Most of the time, not at all from my experience. So I'm just going to do a quick test here. And we're going to say data vertical card equals, and then I can say creators, put a little I in here so it's case insensitive. And then I'm just going to do a border check, 5 pixel solid red. And as you see, nothing happens in the canvas. I think on the front end, though, it's going to show, yeah, it's going to show as selected. This is one of the, like, my biggest complaints for the months and months on Bricks. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go just to the front end, and we're just going to let automatic CSS is going to kind of rescue us here. So I'm just going to bring this in to this global SAS area, and we will do vertical cards. I'm just going to get a little organization going. Okay. So essentially what I did is created those dummy variables, and it's accent image 1 size, I believe is the, yep, there you go, is the first one. So if I want control over that, I should have plenty of control over that. We have accent image 1 position, which is effectively just wanting inset instructions. And so I can go, let's see, 25%. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's top. And then I'm very dyslexic, so I have to like go step by step through the inset. Okay, so that's top. And then right, we're probably going to want auto. From the bottom, we're going to want auto. We can offset that to the left, minus 20 pixels, something like that. Okay. And then we don't need it to be that big. And I know that's not the same image. I didn't load that proper image in first, but I think people get the point. Okay, so the next thing that I can come down is I can do vertical card equals publishers. And we still have control, hopefully, over accent image 1 size. There it is. Okay, so I can just look at here and just see. I mean, it's pretty close by default. So let's do like 130. And then the position on it, I mean, it's, you know, you get it, right? That's pretty close. Okay, so let's do the book. The book is accent image 2 position. Okay, and we're going to do, let's do this again with the dyslexia, power it up. Okay, top is auto, right is, let's do 10% from the right, and let's do bottom, minus 20 pixels, something like that, and auto from the left. That's going to give us that, and then let's do accent image 2 size. Should give us a little bit more control over that, 200, 150. We're just kind of magic numbering this right now. Yeah. Okay. We're good to go there. Let's do 160. Okay. And then essentially we would just do this. Any publisher card that you want to, or vertical card, I guess I should say, businesses, any vertical card that you want control over, you're going to bring these in. And if you want to leave them at defaults, you can leave them at defaults, but you do have manual control over this, even though they don't actually exist. They're being produced by a query loop. Okay, where does that one go? So that's going to be on the right-hand side, accent image 1 position. So that can just stay. Top right, let's go minus 20 pixels there. Top right, bottom is going to be auto. Left is auto. See if that gets us there. Cool. Okay. And we need to push that down from the top. Let's do 55. Okay. Cool. All right. Now, they all have a shared class on them, so I'm just going to go in and grab accent image, and I will drop in also. You could do this with the bricks controls, but, I mean, if you know how to write CSS, it's just easier to do this. So box shadow, we'll do box shadow L. Okay, so we already have box shadows and automatic CSS, and you can customize them and, you know, do whatever you want to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to... Does anybody have any questions on that before we... that's fully query looped, it's fully dynamic, and you have manual positioning control over all of the accent images. Does that make sense to everybody? Are we still streaming? Everybody's quiet.
We're still streaming.
Definitely still streaming.
Okay, good. All right, y'all are worrying me over there.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a little bento action. Okay, so this is going to be. I was looking at this. I basically said it's going to be an onboarding grid. You know, naming things is difficult, but this was all of their onboarding stuff, like migrations and experts and documentation. So to me, that just says onboarding. Let's make sure we save that. By the way, let's not just delete work. Okay, let's get out of there. Get out of here. Okay. So we need an onboarding card. We're going to do a block here, and it's effectively exactly the same thing, where we need a content wrapper, we need a media wrapper, we need a heading, we need a paragraph, and we need a button. So this is going to be my onboarding card. Yeah, a D would help there. Okay, let's go block, and that's going to be my content wrapper. Let's go with heading. Let's go with text. Let's go with, those are arrow buttons, right? Let's go with a link, text link, because then we can have the icon very easily. Let me add that back one more time. Let's go to, the second pet peeve I have about bricks is their icon situation. You can't style icons with classes. Don't ask me why. I think it's a bug, but it's a huge pet peeve for sure. Okay, so that's going to bring that in. And in our media wrapper, which is right here, we'll get our media, and I'm just going to throw in one of the media elements. Let's do here, insert. Okay. And before we move on any further, probably want to auto BIM this. So I'll bring this in. This is an onboarding card. This first one is the content wrapper. There's a heading, there's a description, there is a CTA, that's a media wrapper, and that is media. We'll go ahead and apply. We'll sync the classes. Okay, so that's all good to go. I want to build the vertical ones first, I think. So, you know, I'll just do the styling essentially for these vertical ones. Media wrapper should be full width already, so we just need the media to be full width as well. So we'll go in and get 100% going on that. Perfect. What else needs? Okay, we're going to need padding for the card. So, but I'm also noticing I need to know exactly what the padding value is, because these images have to be moved up the exact amount of the padding that's in the card. So anytime that needs to happen where you have something you have to reference, right? That should be a key to use a token. So I'm going to do card padding, and this is just a locally scoped variable. Okay, so it really only has anything to do with these cards that I'm building right here. And I'm applying that to the entire onboarding card. Now I'm going to come down here. So the next piece of workflow that, Bricks would probably want to improve on is just having to write this instead of having some sort of UI for it. So I'm just going to use a token space L. And now we have our card padding, but it's not just a random spacing value. It's a spacing value for this card. So if I ever want to change the padding in the card, I can change it right here. And not only will my card padding update, but all of these offsets and everything that I'm doing with the position of these images will also update. So you're creating these unbreakable situations for the next time you need to edit this stuff, or when you need to scale it or expand on it in the future. Okay, so we have more or less a vertical card. I think we're going to need space between here. We already have content gap in there. Let's check our grid now for onboarding. We're going to grid this and say grid 2. Gap is going to be grid gap because that makes the most sense. Okay, and so essentially we have, let's see, I think, let's duplicate this. Now I'm going to use probably a modifier because obviously we have 2 wide cards and we have 2 tall cards. And There's shared styles. The reason I'm doing classes, you're going to see like, it's probably a situation where we need a mix of classes, custom classes like BEM. So the global stuff we can control with BEM. And then the manual stuff that's quick is like utility class level, like see how every card has a different background color. Okay, so that just tells me utility class. Like you can't BEM that because BEM is for a one-to-many relationship. This is a utility class situation. And then for these image positions, I would just do these at the ID level. It's unique to every single card. So there's really no sense in trying to, do that with classes or anything like that. So let's go ahead and make our modifier first. So we're going to do an onboarding card wide, right? So a double dash wide. And for the onboarding card wide, we're just going to take that grid column and say span 2. And now we have our wide card. The third biggest pet peeve that I would have about bricks is it's very difficult to use modifiers correctly. So I prefer going back to the main class because you can stem off of the root essentially. And we're just going to target the wide here. Now, the other thing I'm thinking in my brain, probably we need to do that inside of probably a min width media query. What is the value here? 767. So we're just going to guess here and just say, 767. So I only want wide cards to be wide at 767 and up. I don't want them to be wide on mobile. Like that's going to make extra work for me to make this wide now, then go back and undo the making it wide. That's not really efficient. So we should just do this in a min width media query. And so we're going to target the root wide, but we're going to target that's another bug in bricks. It just puts right instead of root. Let's do that. And then let's do root content wrapper, right? So we need to do something to our content wrapper. Let's also do root. Oh my God, bricks. Come on. Is Thomas watching? Did we get Thomas in the house for this? Okay.
I hope.
That'd be easy.
I don't know if he goes on YouTube though.
All right. Maybe not. Maybe not. All right. So root wide, first of all, let's display this as grid. Let's do grid template columns. We're going to do a grid 2-3 situation probably. Okay. Let's do on the content wrapper, we need to justify content to the center, or just actually, let's see, align items to the center up here. That'll probably do the trick. Okay. Let's do align items to start on the wrapper. Let's do text align left just to make sure that's also not out of whack. Okay. So that's looking pretty good there. So that's essentially our wide card. Now, if we want that to be white, all we're going to do is come up here and do BG of white. And what is happening with the white? Okay, BG, yeah. Okay, Bricks pisses on itself from time to time, and you just have to refresh. But it's okay. It's a very powerful builder.
Kevin, I know you're on a roll here. I got to jump in there for a second.
I'm
just going to say I have an anonymous comment.
Yeah.
Okay, and I really need you to answer this.
Yes.
Like, okay. So if somebody were to watch the stream right now,
yep,
and they were not familiar with your work, they don't watch your stuff, okay? Yes. They're not familiar with bricks, and they say, wow, this is like, you've been talking, you've been explaining everything, and they literally say you're in a page builder, and their perspective is you should have just hand coded it because you are typing in so much code like CSS and things like that. How do you respond to that?
So there's two page builder workflows. There's the kind of dumbed down page builder workflow, which is essentially like just build what you see. I mean, there it is. Just build it, right? Style everything at the ID level. This is actually what a lot of page builders encourage people to do. Style everything at the ID level. The dynamic data, what is that? Just build static websites. I mean, that would be much more straightforward. And then, if you can't do something with the page builder controls, go ahead and just ask ChatGPT what the CSS for that would be, copy it out, plug it in, that kind of workflow. And then what we end up with is, I guess you get the pixels to be where they're supposed to be on the screen, but you have a disaster behind the hood. And this kind of speaks to what Brian was saying. Like, I mean, if you're going to build websites, like you should probably know how to build websites. Like you should probably know CSS. In fact, in Page Building 101, so I have a free course that people can do, Page Building 101, not selling anything. 20 episodes long. It's going to tell you right at the beginning. It's like, look, the page builder will take care of PHP for you. The page builder will take care of JavaScript for you. Okay. But it's not going to take care of knowing CSS for you. It's not going to take care of knowing basic HTML and semantic tags and things like that. right? So there's a level of knowledge and skill you have to have. Now, do I expect everybody to work at this pace? No, I don't even really work at this pace. I'm just sprinting so we can show like what's going on. I mean, this is kind of like a little bit of an exhausting pace. But the principles are all the same. Like the principles, everything that I've done here, I taught in Page Building 101, not 201, 301. This is all taught in Page Building 101. Every single thing that we've done. So the answer to that is, do you want to build sites that are scalable? Do you want to build sites that are maintainable? And we've talked about this before on stream after stream after stream. Everybody knows the headache, and everybody's taken over a website where everything is a page. There's no CPTs. There's no dynamic data. There's no classes. There's no nothing. It's a 40-page website, and the client wants to make changes. There's no framework. There's no consistency. It's all magic numbers. It's all raw values. It's all raw dogged. Everything is raw dogged. That's it. And so it's all 100% static. You take it over, and you just have to inform them, like, I'm sorry, this whole thing has to be rebuilt. And if they're redesigning it, then it has to be rebuilt anyway. But there are cases, like with my sites, where I can even redesign the site without rebuilding it all because of the practices that were put in place. So and I always ask people the question of, like, I mean, even just cards, this situation of these cards right here. We don't know. Yeah, we are building one page on this live stream. I get it. But this is not, we all know Ghost is not a one-page website. We know that there is going to be this information, this data existing across multiple pages. We might even put, let's say, every page. Like I go to the creators page, and at the bottom of that, there's going to be these cards again. And we don't know how many verticals there are. Actually, I don't care how many verticals there are, because the way that I built it, I have a single source of truth for all the styling, a single source of truth for all the content and the logic and everything else. So when something needs to change, I can change it in 2 minutes versus having to redo everything manually, go page to page to page. And that assumes, by the way, that you even remember all the pages that these things showed up on. I don't have to care because I built it right in the front end. Like as the process was going, I don't have to worry about it in the future. I already know that it's taken care of. We've been around the block, right? We know that you can easily get into a static situation where this becomes an absolute nightmare. And the bigger the site gets, the bigger the nightmare gets. And it's really expensive, okay? It's taking me, I would argue I'm moving fairly quickly. But if I was to statically build this, I could just fly through it. Like it would be done in half the time. But that time that I'm taking, a little bit longer on the front end, is saving me hours of time later when things need to change or adjust, or we need to update information, or when the client comes along and says, hey, we have a new vertical, and I can just go to bed and I can be like, you know how to add that. They just go into ACF or that custom post type, they do a new vertical, they publish it. Now, do they know how to manually position the accent images? No, I'll get an email in the morning for that. Actually, my team will, right? But the vertical that they added will be in all the grids. It'll actually have default positions for those accent images. Nothing will look broken. It just might not be exactly the pixel, area that they wanted. And so we can easily adjust that in the morning when we wake up in about 8 seconds and then move on with our life, right? So I've always advocated for build dynamic websites. Don't build static websites. Know what you're doing. Okay, use a class-first workflow. Make sure it's maintainable. Make sure it's scalable. And that's really all we're doing here. Make sure it's consistent. The framework behind all of this of notice I didn't have to decide what any of these padding values, any of these spacing values. I made no decisions. I set up the spacing on the website. I set up the colors. I don't have to make any decisions for anything else. I just choose colors, choose tokens, and I just build, and that's it. And then the hard stuff is, okay, I got to know how to query loop stuff. I got to know how to do some magic here to work around the fact that this is a query loop, but all of these things need manual positioning. Like I said, and you don't have to do that. Let's tell the client they can't have their accent images. I don't know. Or just step up your game, right? And that's why I put out so much education so that people can do this.
I hear you on all that. Appreciate that. One other transparent question that I need, I think people need, especially on both sides here, if they're looking at Bricks first and looking at your workflow for the first time, is it fair to say that, you mentioned this briefly, but to reiterate, is it fair to say that most of the time, given your skill set, your workflow, you hop to if anything's like even slightly more difficult than like a couple toggles in the style tab, you're going to the custom ACSS spot. So like if I posed you the challenge of, hey, build this section with just bricks, there are a lot more things that you could toggle rather than actually like custom CSS code. Is that like relatively fair to say?
Sorry, ask that one more time.
So like if you always head to the custom CSS and put the root selector in there and just go to town on that because you're more comfortable there. But what I'm saying is, what my perspective on bricks is it gives you almost, probably not all, but like it gives you a ton of CSS like properties with toggles and stuff that you can put in, obviously, in the style tab. So what I'm saying is, like, for people that are looking at this and saying like, hey, he's writing a lot of code, I don't think you actually have to write as much code as you.
No, you don't. I mean, I'm doing a lot with tokens, and there's no UI for these kind of locally scoped tokens in bricks. So if you're going to use locally scoped variables, then you're going to have to do a little bit of but that's what the job calls for. You can't, I would say you can't just add a random value for this card padding. Like space L, I mean, it's still a token. It's still automatically responsive. It's still got a lot of great qualities. But if I decide that the spacing needs to change, the offsets of these images that we're like, I'll show you right here with this one, for example. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this meteor. I need it to touch the bottom of the card. Okay, well, if the card padding was space L, I would offset this by space L. So I would go margin bottom, and I would choose space L, and then I would multiply that by -1. So that's going to give me the negative value. And there it is. Now, that just happens to work because, one, I already knew what the value was. Okay. But two is, if the value of the card padding were ever to change, that offset would break. Okay. And then you would have to fix that too. And that's just annoying. Okay. So, and it didn't take me it took 4 extra seconds to just make a token called card padding that references space L. So now I can just say, we're going to do the card padding times -1. Does the exact same thing, but the difference is that if I ever want to change the card padding, my offsets are not going to break. Okay, so it's another example of just like one extra little layer, right? Of like, think down the line, one more step, and we can account for yet another thing. And when you work on a website that's built like this, the maintainability of it is so easy. It's so fast, right? Because things don't break when you start moving them around. And of course, if we have to query loop this, we didn't even talk about this. I mean, you may want to query loop this. They all go to their individual areas of the website. So now we're in a situation where all this unique stuff is happening, but we also need to query loop it because we don't want to build a static website. You have to know some of these tricks and techniques and tactics. I'm going to do this one more time. So card padding times -1. Right, is going to move that up. And now, see, because I'm just using a simple calc, like that can actually be -2. Because if you look at the ghost version of that, like I just did a second ago, let me get back in here and actually change this to the right image. This one's actually offset up beyond the top of the card because they want it to look like it's cut off, right? So now if I just go to onboarding card, which I'm controlling all of the onboarding cards right now. I'm not just controlling this one, and I don't have to live this life of like copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, like, which you can't even do across pages. But I'm just going to go down to overflow. And here's an example. Like, I could write overflow hidden faster than I can find this input. But yeah, you don't have to, right? I can just find the input for overflow hidden. Or if you know it's called overflow, style layout, it's up here. I never use it. So, but you just search for the input you're looking for, and it's going to come up right there, right? So you can do that as well. But now I've got that offset up there. And then I'll just show the buttons real quick, and I guess we'll be done. So this is going to be, and this is not, I didn't set this up ahead of time. This is just how automatic CSS works. Like when you plug in the colors, if you notice here, you need a black button here, you need a primary button, you need an accent button, and you need a white button, right? So when I just turn these colors on in automatic CSS, I automatically get buttons available for them. I don't have to set any of that up. It's just done for me. So I can say that that's going to be primary, okay? And we'll come back to the fact that these are outline buttons in just a second. So this one is going to be, I believe, the accent color, right? And then this one is going to be, what was that? Was it white down there? I don't remember. Let's put that in for now. Okay, so we've got this one. Now I can just come in and say, you know what? I want the outline version because automatic CSS already has outline versions of buttons set up. So I can just go to all of them and say, I would like the outline version. Let's right click this button, outline. And then obviously they don't look like the buttons. Okay. So, and I can do this from the front end. I can do this from inside. Let's go ahead and open automatic CSS, go to buttons. See, I have global styling control over all of my buttons. I mean, I could just make them look. Let's go custom button text size. And let's go, okay, so we have 18 and 14 because it's definitely smaller text in there. And I think if we just do that, once it refreshes, we should be good to go. We'll have the right button size. It's a little slower on Insta WP. There we go. Okay, so now our buttons look the way that they're, and that's buttons all across the entire website, the entire website. And I can dial in the exact hover colors. Like if I go into here, if I go to primary, you can see here's the solid version. I have a dark variant, a light variant, an outline variant, a dark outline variant, a light outline variant. I have the hover controls for all of them sitting right here. And it's all tokenized. I can do whatever I want, which means that this is already compatible with things like, dark mode, color scheme, etc. So build maintainable websites, build dynamic websites, build accessible websites. This is like what I've advocated for and preached since forever. I noticed one more thing I want to do right here. So we're just going to show people how to do media wrapper because that had like some fancy little background image thing. So I'm going to go to backgrounds. And again, this is bricks. I'm not going to write anything here. Okay. So we'll just put that in. And then on that media wrapper, I want to come up and do once again, like what is the value here that I could even come back to this 3 months later. I don't know. I don't care. It's just called card padding. I don't need to know what the actual value is of this thing. Okay. So we can do that on the right side. And then we're probably going to want auto on that side. All right. Fantastic. And then actually inside of this, I actually kind of need the card padding. So super valuable that I just happen to have that already made. All right, so we put that in, and then I'll just go down to gradient, and we'll apply this to the overlay, add a color. I never know which one it is because I'm dyslexic, so we'll just put red, and we'll put transparent. We'll see what happens. Raw and transparent. Okay, so the red's on the bottom. Let's angle that in, 90. Okay, so the transparent one, the red one needs to be transparent. And then the transparent one, or I could just probably flip them around, but that's fine. And let's say white. Okay, bang. All right, and we get that little gradient effect back there. Okay, so there's your bento grid. This one, I guess we would all know what we're supposed to do here now, right? So just come into layout and our margin. Let's take that card, padding, times -1, move it over, move it down, move it up. And then what I would personally do is I would come in. Let's actually not do that on the top. Let's take that off the top. Okay. I would come in probably to these wide cards, only the wide cards, only ones I care about, minimum height. And I would just set, a value of, 500 pixels, 400 pixels, wherever. And then we can get this to, let's see, what is going on with our media wrapper, onboarding card wide. All right, let's do probably like a stretch, probably on our entire grid, but you get the point.
Yeah, we got it. I think.
How are we on time, by the way? Did I go way over?
Maybe.
No, you didn't.
It
actually worked out quite well, but I think it's also a good point to, because we're closing in on 2 hours, so it might be a good point to come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
I have a couple of thoughts that I've collected. I also have a couple of questions that I collected from the chat. And
I think we should kick it to Brian. Do you have any thoughts off the top, Aaron?
Yeah. It's one of the things I had in mind. Also, I know Brian you guys probably want to head out soon, right? Like how many minutes do we have?
Yeah, I can stick around for 5 more minutes or so. Yeah.
5 more minutes?
Yeah, I got 15, 20. I mean, I can say and answer questions. I know people usually have a lot, so.
Okay, yes, they do.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just reiterate Kevin's point about he used the word tokens, variables, just about maintainable styles. So in Bricks, I like that you're using CSS variables. You're putting all that stuff in there. I think in the block editor, when you see me moving like spacing and font sizes, again, that's the same thing. Like those are all token. I can change them. And like if you're not doing that, if you're putting custom values on things, yeah, you're in for a world of pain. And then I think my biggest question, what I didn't see is like, what is, if I'm your client and I decide to have a new like headline on the top of that page, what does that process look like?
Okay, so I think that's a really good question. So I did a whole video on this. If people want to watch it, it's called stop letting, for the love of God, stop letting clients edit websites. I think it's something like that. So everybody thinks it's like just like, I don't know why the industry thinks it's just okay to like, oh yeah, go ahead and change that heading. Like, anybody that knows anything about, like, well, first of all, let's go to the premise of why are we building the website for the client in the first place? Well, typically they have a business and they want that business to grow and make money. They also have other objectives, like they want their website to rank on Google. They want their PPC ads to convert. They want, when people arrive at the website, they want those visitors to be sold on the thing that they're selling, or take whatever action that they want the visitor to take. So we have that premise in mind. That's what the clients, that's our goals for the website. And then I ask the question, great, who is responsible for those goals? And I think most of the clients would be like, well, you are, dude. That's why I'm hiring you, right? And so, okay, good. I am responsible for those goals. You can't then send, as I say all the time, fucking Bev from accounting in to start changing headlines and start changing card copy and all this other stuff, because one, it has conversion rate implications. Two, it has just general like implications in terms of first impressions for visitors. It has SEO implications. So on the one hand, I can't be responsible for the results of this website while somebody else is just coming in on a whim, just changing stuff around. There's also analytics implications. I mean, hey, Kevin, our traffic has tanked. What happened? And well, what did Bev change last week? I don't know. Like, she's not keeping track of this stuff. So there's analytics implications. There's so many implications, but for some reason we feel like, oh, this is just a thing. This is just every business, every, Jane and Dick in whatever company should be able to come in and just do whatever they want to any website that's been built. And let's just make it as easy as we possibly can for them. So what I say up front is, if we're going to be responsible for the goals of this website, then let's be all on the same page as to what's going to change and when it's going to change and how it's going to change. And let's let that go through like some sort of official person, right? So if they want to change the headline, we have a discussion about, okay, well, what implications is that going to have? I mean, we all know the headline is one of the most important pieces of content on the page. So it should probably have a discussion there. Now, if their marketing expert team came up with this amazing new headline and they just want to change, it's a simple request. They can put it in. Or if it's an area of the site that we've built with custom fields, they can use the custom fields to change them because we've already decided. So for example, there's inconsequential things like adding and removing team members. That's inconsequential to SEO for the most part, inconsequential to conversion rates and all of that stuff. So yeah, let's let them edit that. And we use a CPT for that. We use custom fields for that, just like you saw me create these cards. So they don't have to open bricks. They don't have to know anything about anything. They just go in and they just edit the fields. So that's kind of the whole spiel about that.
Kevin, I'm with you on that. I think that like agency owners, so like we really need, I know we have other questions, but we really need to hit on this because this is, I think, super important. I think a lot of times this doesn't get prefaced enough. Like, Kevin owns an agency. Brian, I believe you work for a large agency, like, and you're in that space a lot and everything like that. I really think though that Elijah, I think, just made a good comment in here. Like, are those clients that you guys are talking about though different? Like, Brian, when you build a website and you deploy that to people, I mean, what percentage of the time does that client have like a marketing presence already like built in, and you just built the site and kind of handed it to them? Because that's very different, I feel like, than from what I understand, Kevin, you, me, and a lot of other people. Like, we're kind of like an external marketing team in a way. So like, Brian, please elaborate on that, because I think that's like a huge point that I think that is in this whole ecosystem. There's a lot of misconfusion and confusion around that.
I think that the biggest issue with WordPress is that a lot of people have this idea that the way they use it is the way everybody should use it or does use it. And so you do get a lot of advice that is very specific to one side of the industry. But the problem with WordPress is that it's used across entire different types of sites. So stores, publishers, enterprise, small business, all this stuff. So it really is a broad ecosystem. And if you're trying to find where your focus is going to be and the kind of work that you want to do and the kind of what you actually want your day-to-day life to look like, what kind of clients you want to talk to and deal with, and what you want to get paid for. You kind of have to like navigate that successfully. And so I do think that Kevin and I have very different types of clients and niches, and it's not about like a value judgment. It's purely about what they come to you for, what they need done. And so, yeah, like a lot of our clients, they have marketing people that want to be able to, that would never agree to to asking permission to change the content on their website, because that's not what they're asking for. They have in-house experts to deal with that. So
yeah,
it's a different situation.
Just to clarify, there are pathways to making it very easy for clients to, everything that I did. For example, it's relatively new. There's an add-on called Gutenberg for bricks that actually converts everything that I just did into Gutenberg blocks. And so anybody that are, I believe, locked down in terms of their styling. So we could build this page. We could build it the way that I did it, but then convert everything to Gutenberg blocks, and then they can go in and just change the content and be done. And so we still have the best of both worlds available for those situations where it makes sense. What I see for the most part is this default idea that every website that's ever created for any business should be freely editable easily, and we should just hand over the keys, essentially. Like, just hand over the keys when we're done and let them do whatever they want with it. And we just know the track record of business owners and their people who don't know what they're doing absolutely royally screwing it up, right? And that does real damage to the business. So we're not doing them a service by handing the keys over to them. They just have a monthly management fee. We do the simple stuff that they need done. And we also kind of drive the strategy for the website as well. But if there was a client that was much larger and they had an internal marketing team and they wanted to be able to freely change things, there's absolutely pathways for that, even using the workflow that I just used.
I have one other question too. Sometimes you're doing custom CSS and sometimes there's kind of like a sidebar and all those sorts of things. How do you track internally, like in your head? Or if I took over your site and I have bricks and you have a couple add-on plugins or these other frameworks on top of it and stuff like that, how easy is it for another developer who's maybe familiar with bricks but not familiar with your workflow? Are they able to come in and say, like, I know exactly where to edit, even though like some of it's custom CSS, some of it's not? And this is like a general question for Gutenberg page builders, everything, because I think that's always a kind of an issue. How do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I've been a big proponent of putting the CSS where the thing lives. I think is a very important aspect to workflow. Like, and you could just ask anybody randomly, like, okay, here are these cards. We're on the front end of the website. Where would you go to edit these cards? Like the styling, the structure, whatever you wanted to edit, where would you go? And if the answer is anything other than to the source of the card, like, I think it's a problem. So we say edit with bricks, and we would go to the card. Okay, so now we know that all styling associated with this card lives right here in the inputs or is attached to the thing. If I wrote custom CSS, the custom CSS lives with that item as well. And this is very, very beneficial. Like, if you come back 6 months, we all know, like, there's the 3-month rule, 6-month rule, whatever you want to call it, where it's like you come back and you're like, what the fuck did I do? Like, where is everything? And you're just lost, and the stuff spread out between 4 different style sheets and this and that. We don't want to get in that situation. So I think the dynamic root selector, like, for example, where I can reference the name of a class, that's essentially, if anybody was confused on that, that's all that's doing. It's dynamically referencing the name of the selector that I have selected. But what that actually gives me is the ability to write fairly advanced CSS attached to this component, let's say, and it keeps everything in one place. And if I ever edit, which you can't even do this in a code editor, really, like you have to find and replace everything. But I can edit this class name and none of my custom CSS will break because it's all dynamically referencing the name. Which is another huge advantage. But to answer the question, the styling all lives with the thing you're already wanting to edit. And it doesn't matter what page you're on, because I'm not styling at the ID level. I'm styling at the class level, which means that styling affects every instance. And so I can edit any instance of the thing and get exactly what I want. And I think that's a huge benefit. You saw me write a little CSS in automatic CSS on the front end, and that was just to get around a bricks issue. But the bricks issue should be, taken care of hopefully soon. And then that wouldn't have even had to happen. And all the CSS would live with the component that it belongs to. And by the way, because that's all dynamically referenced, anybody else, I can take this section right here. This is what Frames does, essentially. All of these layouts, okay, all have classes. They all have custom CSS. But because of the dynamic root selector and because CSS lives with its component, anybody can import any of these to any website, freely change the class names, and make it theirs. Nothing breaks. All the CSS comes along with it. They don't have any style sheets to manage. They don't have anything. It's just literally point, click, insert, move on with your life. And it works flawlessly. And so I think that's a huge missing piece of patterns in I actually don't think that patterns in Gutenberg will be worth much of anything until they have component level CSS, like CSS that lives with that thing I'm importing. That can't be managed in an external area of any kind. It has to come in with the component, has to stay with the component. And then in order to do that, of course, they would probably need classes in the first place. Like that's another challenge. There's a lot of challenges with that workflow. Whereas with bricks, and this isn't, I want to again make the point, this isn't a novel approach. If people look, and this goes to Mark's question, like, look at all the stuff you're doing with classes. And this is web design. This has been the principle of web design since day one of CSS. Like since classes were invented as a concept, this is the workflow. So it's not a novel thing that I'm doing. I'm just doing the thing we're supposed to be doing. I think that's not a value statement, but you get it.
Yeah, and I think the block editor, like, we could get into whether you could have the same sort of class-based workflow and whether the tools are actually there or not. Because I would push back on that. I think that's a misunderstanding. But my other question, this is my last one, and then I do got to go. Say you have another developer, they work on the site, they make some changes to it, to some style or something. You log in the next day, the developer's off, it's their day off, and you're looking at the changes and you can tell they broke something. How do you know what changes that person made to the style, and how do you revert those changes?
So obviously there's you have your, for major stuff, you have your backup system in place, right? So if you needed to restore something because they royally screwed something up, that's always a possibility. As far as little stuff though, what I found, and just in my general experience, and I do think that page builders like Bricks should add better version control. They have a history, so you can do some histories, but it's not, I'll just be honest, it's not fantastic. Okay. So some level of version control would be really nice. Tracking specific changes to specific users would be really nice. But for the most part, let's say somebody screwed up this card. Okay. I log in and I see, oh, the card's screwed up. Well, one good thing is that I can just fix it, and I can probably fix it in like 5 seconds everywhere because it's all done with classes. And nobody's going to touch the site who's just randomly going back to using ID styling for everything and not doing anything according to like our process, or really just a professional web design process in general. So typically the issues are going to be very small and fixable within minutes. So yeah, you could implement a bunch of version control and all this other stuff. But if I can just go fix and publish, and now it's done, I move on with my life. It's kind of like, was that version control even super relevant? And then, like I said, if they royally screw something up, I mean, we have backup copies.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely a big topic to talk about next time, for sure.
Indeed.
Version control. And go check out mine and Brian's stream over on Brian's channel about version control last week. Sweet.
I've yet to see it.
Say thank you. If you have any last comments for me, let me know. And then
Brian, thank you.
Still the morning here. I got to get to work.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, yeah.
I think, going through my notes that I took, there's nothing specifically that we would need to ask you at this point. I'm glad we had the chance to sort of get the question out of the way. What's your takeaway from watching Kevin build in Bricks? I would like to kind of pose the same question to Kevin, like looking at the way Brian worked in Gutenberg. It would be nice to hear what your takeaway is, like how did you learn any new tricks here? Did you take any insights out of that? And yeah, but Brian, if you need to go, then of course, by all means. And I don't know, but Kevin says you have another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah,
10,
yeah,
15?
yeah.
Okay, and Mark and I think we have some more time, so we're happy to stay on and chat with you guys more in the audience if you want, even after Brian and Kevin leave.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, Brian, if you want to jump in, awesome. Or sign off. Make sure you tell people where to find you and everything like that, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so my name.com, briancoords.com for stuff. I do focus mostly on like kind of Gutenberg and then a little bit more of the JavaScript kind of world. So if you're doing things like building plugins, building more custom integrations, things like that in WordPress, that's kind of what I sort of focus on. I put a link on my Twitter to the site, so you can go to it and you can just look at it and spec the code and stuff like that. I would
That
actually
was one
like
of the
to.
questions, actually.
Okay, cool. And then I would like to I might make a playground link so you could actually log in and edit the content. So I'll see if I have time to do that. So you could open it up in Playground and just kind of mess around with it. Or I guess InstaWP is kind of useful for that. Just thank you to Kevin, because I feel like I've never seen like what it actually looks like to use bricks, especially. I haven't used a page builder in a long time. So I kind of forget what that experience is like, and I can see why a lot of people like it, and I can definitely understand the value of it. And I'm excited because I think it's kind of like the more page builders push forward, I think the more it forces core to push forward and the more it blazes a path. And I just hope that the core team can say, hey, let's learn from this stuff and pick the parts we like and not the parts that we don't, and kind of drive forward. And then that way people will still have, what I consider a truly free and open source solution, which is WordPress without anything sitting on top of it or anything that adds to the dependency chain at all. So, just thank you guys for hosting this, and thank you everybody for all the comments. I've been reading them and they've been great. Have a good rest of your day.
Greatly appreciate it,
very
Brian.
much.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Ooh.
Regarding the links to the builds, we're gonna get Kevin. If you have a live link there as well, we're gonna just put them in the description of this video afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
That would be great. Let me just see if, or actually, Kevin, do you wanna talk about that a little? Like, what were your personal takeaways from watching the first half where Brian was building?
Well, to start, I didn't know if he was going to use like default 2024, like, and just use it as a page builder, right? Or obviously he came in with a custom theme. I don't know how much setup is involved. I think some people did want to see the colors set up in automatic CSS and all that. So I should probably go back to that if they want to. Because that, the setup for ACSS was like 5 minutes. And I would think that if I just had to guess, like the setup for like the custom theme infrastructure and just to do something very simple, like they don't have position relative in the block editor. So he had to add that via his theme. Like he had to add a control that I think we would all agree should probably just already exist. And that's the story of Gutenberg. Every time I try to use it, there's something that's like so common. And then we're forced to sit around while they celebrate adding the most common thing, like the negative margin thing that just came. I mean, this is celebrated like it's, like this is some novel concept. It's come to Gutenberg after 7 years of development. It's been in every page builder since day. Like it would be the first thing that you would think to have in a page builder is negative margin. So I'm always running into scenarios, and I think that's why Brian went the route that he did with the custom theme and, using block manipulation and stuff like that to actually arrive where he wanted to arrive at. And I just my job is to use the page builder, not to build the page builder, right? Like it's like, I don't open the page builder and go, all right, what's missing? All right, let me get out my toolbox. Let me fix this builder. Then I can actually do my job. That doesn't actually seem like, the workflow that I'm interested in. I would like an environment where I can just get to work,
Well, technically, that is your job with ACSS to a degree.
With ACSS, it is, but not with my client. Not
a digital gravy. No. Yeah. So fair points there. Yeah. I mean, do we have any other good questions here?
There's still a bunch of stuff. So one important thing is Ruben said he loves the stream, so perhaps we can bash breakdance for a while.
Yeah, we did leave breakdance alone up to this point.
You'll get $2, $3. You'll get it's worth a good couple dollars every time.
That's true.
If you want to share my screen again, I have I know there was a bunch of people asking about how how the colors and everything were set up in ACSF.
We got one from Matt over at WP Minute 2. What do you think about Brian's approach? I think you kind of answered it a little bit, but I think I'm by myself on screen. This is sick.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Hey,
How
see
do
you guys.
I now?
It's my screen now.
There's the wrong one.
Just taking a look at these other ones here. Bricks and Elementor next. That's a great one there.
Am I on or not? Oh, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, now you're on.
There you go.
Okay, so essentially, the color palettes, the way it was set up is primary. I gave to that pink color. Accent was the green. Base is the blue. And so I think this is what confuses a lot of people. Actually, let me go to the Ghost site. It's probably easier to look at theirs. This is what I used as the base. If you come down, this is still the base color. It's just a different shade of the base color. And so if we hop back in, actually all of the backgrounds, all of the background, that's base again. This is white, which just exists by default. That's base again. This is the base light again. This card right here is another version of base. It's the same hue. It's just a different saturation and a different lightness value. And so once you understand like just how shades work and how the colors are set up, that's another down here. This is the ultra dark version of base down here. So essentially all the backgrounds and the card background right here are all one color, which is that's how it actually is on most websites. So let me go back to the front end here. So if I open base, for example, I can come in here and I can see what was edited. For example, light, I changed the lightness value here, changed some saturation. I really dropped the saturation down on these, and that's all I did. So just to show you the process of this, I inspect this, and I already know by eyeballing it, that's the base color. Like, I know both of those are the base color. I can just already tell. But I don't know the exact values for the shade. And if you want to match it exact, you don't want to be in a situation where you're like doing guesswork, right? So if you just go to computed tab over here, is anything blocking what I'm showing right now? It's always a common problem.
Looking good, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, you're full screened, yeah.
So here's background color right here. And this little arrow, you can follow it to the initial instruction. And if you just click the little swatch, okay, it's going to literally give you, like, what do you want? Do you want the hex? Do you want the HSL values? What do you want? And I just take these HSL values, and you can plug them into the dashboard and just get that exact shade. And so you're matching 1-to-1. And then all I'm doing is there's an abstraction in automatic CSS to make things even faster and easier when you're building, but I don't choose background colors. Like, I map colors to background utilities. So when I want a light background, I go background light, background dark, background ultra dark, whatever. And it's using my base colors, but I don't even need to know that they're my base colors, and I don't even have to care. And if they ever change in the future, it doesn't really matter. Because it makes it all very, very safe and themable. This is the thing about like automatic CSS. You can change everything after the website is already built safely. You can change all the spacing. You can change all of the typography. And I know that everybody will say, well, that's with tokens in general, but not like this. Not like this. Like, we have contextual spacing. So I can manage the spacing between my content independently from everywhere else. I can manage the spacing in my grids. Everywhere grids exist, I can manage them. Everywhere content exists, I can manage it, right? It's independently. It's not, I think Brian mentioned, okay, he's using a token effectively in Gutenberg, but it's a generic token. It's a space L, space XL kind of token, right? That's generic. There's no information about where that token has been used. And when you have no information about where that token has been used, you can't safely change it. And I'll just remind everybody, these are called variables. They're supposed to be able to change. So if you create a situation that renders the variable unchangeable, whether that, like, it's just not safe to change it, you've destroyed that variable, essentially. And so abstraction, like taking these generic tokens and assigning them to actual areas, this is something that I've advocated for a long time now. I had never seen this being done, but it made sense to my brain. No other framework does this, but it gives you tremendous control over what's going on. The same way you abstract away colors into different assignments of where those things are used. But that's it. So in the typography, I just set my base sizes. I did some override for the H1 and the H2. I let everything else just exist on the math scale. And that's all the setup that there was plug the colors in, plug the shades in, do the typography, do the spacing, hit save, and just build the site.
Kevin, I know your answer to this question. I know how you're going to do it. But for anybody here that is not familiar with the bricks, the workflow that you talk about and everything like that, I need you to just very simply show how you could change some of this content. Obviously, the content, like a client could change the content, like when you hand this off. I know for the CPTs.
Oh, like he asked about. Oh, the
Yeah.
CPTs. Yeah.
That obviously, I would think CPTs for some is more direct. Obviously, we can show to that. But the secondary thing I would say is, we don't have to go into Gutenbricks, which is a fantastic video. I don't know. I know Dave Foy has a video on that. Definitely look up Gutenbricks if you're interested in that deeper. But the 3 ways I would say is 1, Gutenbricks, which is like really interesting. CPTs, which we all know, if you want to demo that real quick. And you don't really have to demo this if you don't have ACF Pro, but like other thing is like options, where like it's specific pieces of data and stuff like that that you could do. Or a lot of people definitely don't do this, where they make a field group, they attach it to a page, and then you can like set a field for heading, and then you can set that heading on those pages with fallbacks and things like that. So I just said a lot of shit there, but my point is, if you show just a couple of those things to appease the people that are like, how is a client going to edit any of this?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so here we are in the back end, right? So I'm going to go to verticals. I'm going to go to creators. And Bev's like, it's not really 3 million. It was 3.1. We're at 3.1 now. Okay, so we hit 3.1, and then we hit update, and then we refresh the page, and it's 3.1, right? So she's just doing that change, if she's, qualified to do that, in this little text box, glorified text box right here. And if they want to change the accent image, they can go ahead and swap the accent. They can swap that featured image. They can change the name of this if they want to. So all of that is very easy just in default work. You don't have to go into bricks for any of that. Let me swap this image, see what happens. Let's go to, I think you got to remove it first. There we go. Okay. How about a butterfly? Bev likes butterflies, right? Of course she does. A perfect match for that photo right there. Okay. Now, so you see, Bev's going to have to, send us a little ticket and say, oh, it's got a box shadow around it, and my butterfly is, has no background, so that looks a little odd. Okay, we can go fix that, Bev. It's not a problem. But is that really her job anyway? Like, isn't she the one that's supposed to be, mastering the content and all of that? She shouldn't worry about that. So send that off to us, and we'll fix it up. So it's very easy to make these adjustments here. As far as if they did need to just change the page I tell clients this all the time, like, it's not rocket science. Like, building it maybe is a little bit closer to rocket science, but like, editing it is not. So they can come in and double click some things. It's not all that difficult. Now you do have, and maybe bricks could make this a little bit better. You've got some tags that could get broken in here because of the way that they do these inputs. Shout out to Oxygen. Actually, I think Oxygen does this. There's actually pros and cons to both ways, but Oxygen, you can highlight text and then click a span button, and it will make it an independently clickable element and not expose the actual tags. So it's a little bit safer. But still, it's not rocket science. And if Bev ends up breaking this so that that doesn't have a pink 3 words in the head, it's not really a disaster. At the end of the day, somebody can easily just come in behind her and okay, thanks, and we'll fix that up. But it's any of this stuff is fairly easy to just click, as long as they're not just like going in here and deleting classes off things. Like, they just touch what you need to touch. I think Advanced Themer may have some lockdown controls. Like, you can actually choose which fields and stuff get exposed to certain users. That is another pathway and another option that is available to people. But at the end of the day, building it is the hard part. Editing some text, not super difficult. The only thing that would be confusing here is that, they see 3 things, but there aren't 3 things. There's one thing. There's one card, and it's dynamically generating the other instances. But that's, I do let some clients in that I know aren't, morons, and they'll basically message me and be like, I didn't understand that part. Can you do that for me? I'm like, yeah, no problem whatsoever. So it's easy. We just work with the client.
Maddie, do you have any other starred questions?
Yes, I do. And let me see what else I have.
Let's go through stuff. How are you on time, Kevin?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Maddie.
Okay. Okay, there's one here. What was that one?
Kevin, would you How would you tackle a situation of client requests a section where he would like to have an option to add hotspots to an image, for example, store location on map or name tags on photo?
Sounds like a very specific thing.
That is one of the ones where like you'll have like often have like an element in a widget or an element in like Elementor where it'll do that for you. But again, quite limiting, I'm sure, in certain cases, and we know the other.
We actually have a frame right here, contact section Foxtrot, that actually uses hotspots and labels and things, and you can actually just swap the image for anything that you want, and then you can use the hotspots that we've built in. It is something that's better done with a component, you know, like Bricks Extras has a hotspot component. That's good. You know, Frames will eventually have it, but you know, it's still going to be a little technical for that. I mean, they're going to have to know, they're going to have to choose coordinates for their hotspot. There's no way around that to really make it like super automatic. And again, it's just something I would say, like, I just always, even if they're a marketing person, even if they're a marketing agency or what, that's not really their job. Like, there has to be a separation of concerns when you're managing a website. And so if it's not your job, why are you doing it? Like, give that to the person whose job it is to do that thing, and you know, go do your area, and everybody will be more productive. That's kind of how I feel in terms of website management.
Yeah, makes sense.
We have Elijah here. It'd be interesting to know which broad categories of decisions Brian and Kevin like to see their visual site building tools make for them versus which ones they like to have more agency over. Unfortunately, Brian is gone, but still.
Read it one more time. This is from Elijah.
It would be interesting to know which broad categories of decisions Brian and Kevin like to see their visual site building tools make for them versus which ones they like to have more agency over.
I think that it's okay. Well, so a page builder doesn't have to have it. Well, actually, I'll back up on that. It does kind of, because of the broad range of users, have to have some opinions about how things are done. Otherwise, you add things and like there's literally no spacing anywhere. Everything's touching everything. You got to do a lot of work from the ground up. Now, if you had a framework like Automatic CSS, you wouldn't have to do all of that work from the ground up. It would already be done for you. But a page builder feels like they have to make some of those decisions for the user initially out of the box. And I'm actually okay with that. What the rule would be, there's actually a couple things page builders can do to dramatically improve the situation that's going on. Number one is implement your opinions with zero specificity. I can't tell you how many times a page builder implements an opinion about how something should be done, and it's put in with a level of specificity that requires extra hassle to get around it, to override it, to change the decision, right? That's number one. So implement it with zero specificity. The second thing is implement everything with tokens. You can use even like what I've done with some things in Automatic CSS, even you implement with a dummy token, you put the user's actual value that they want or my opinionated value as the fallback for that token. And then the user can just freely use the token for whatever they want without actually overriding anything. You're just overriding the fallback essentially. So if page builders did that for almost everything that they did, things would be way more themable, way easier to work with. So that would be probably number two. So if you just do those things, implement your opinions with no specificity, and then as a secondary layer, implement them with variables with fallback values, and we're good to go.
You got maybe one or two more, Maddie?
Yes. What was that? I'm interested in seeing the custom theme setup we didn't get to see. So yeah, this has been mentioned a couple times actually. So we're going to see what we can make of that. I mean, obviously we can't fix that problem now, but
I think there's been a lot of, not to cut you off there, Maddie, but like in the same vein there, I think there's been a lot of really great feedback, that being one. I think another thing that Kevin, maybe you have some thoughts on, is going back and forth between section by section rather than the whole page. I know it would kind of mess up the workflow per se, but it would kind of be interested just to see it even smaller. I think we did a good job keeping it tight, but just some ideas there. Because
I like that idea a lot. I think it was mentioned once or twice that, you know, if we narrow this down to just one or two sections, like really pick. And I know, Kevin, you suggested that, and I think the other guys too as well. In the when we did the
this section right here was enough to talk about, like, for the whole
exactly
the whole stream, you know.
Yeah.
And I plan to do, I'll be doing a video just on this section, just and slowing everything down and like going step by step on, because this is actually a common problem. Like you want to query loop, but the things within the query loop have unique elements about them. And that's where people get completely lost and like, okay, I have to abandon this concept of a query loop because I can't do that. And they actually can do it. They just need a process for it.
Yeah, they can't see it. It wasn't on screen there, but he was just talking about the cards. Kevin was just talking about the cards.
Oh, yeah.
The card section, the verticals. Cool.
Yeah, let me just.
Yeah, we're good there.
These guys.
What do you think? One more question?
Yes. It's sort of a little bit off topic, but I thought it might be interesting because I know, Kevin, you have a bunch of thoughts on those. I know them, but perhaps reiterate them real quick. I think they make a lot of sense, and I've heard others say the same thing.
Let me add to the question first, though, too, a little bit, Kevin, because I have a specific instance of this. We've seen people on Twitter specifically say that, like, we are moving towards this idea of less classes, less, like, perfect code or whatever, or, like, managing the code, because now you can type into ChatGPT, hey, build me a website or whatever, and it builds you a website, so we don't have to worry about that. I think there might be some validity to that, but at the same time, like, are we ever really going to get rid of this stuff? You know what I mean? Like, so what's your thought process on how the mentality is kind of changing as well? Not just the technology, but like the mentality around it, I feel like would be really insightful.
So I think if you know, one of the common questions about AI is AI going to replace us? And that's like every industry asks that question over and over and over and over again. And if you do copy paste level work, the answer is yes. If it's fucking going to replace you like tomorrow, like it kind of probably already did, right? If you're in Framer, just, hey, look at this easy drag and drop tool. Look, everybody can use it. If you're Wix, Squarespace, there's going to be no professionals in that realm. Okay, so who can't AI replace? The people writing legitimate copy, the people write that, and agencies that actually know all of these things actually matter, that AI is not really going to get the job done for you, that if AI is building all websites, they're all going to sound the same, they're all going to read the same, they're all going to look relatively the same. It's a race to the bottom, and everybody wants like a shortcut to everything. And you know, it's, if you want the job to stick around, then you've got to continue knowing your craft and actually doing the level of work that people, I mean, how are you going to get AI to do like this section right here? AI wouldn't really come up with this section. And so, and then, you know, build it in any sort of meaningful way. Plus, is Google on board? Like, because if you look at Framer, if you look at even Gutenberg a lot, if you look at Elementor, right? Like, let's just take the one concept. We could talk about semantic HTML, but we could just talk about accessibility because that's a very important rising thing. You know, that has to be accounted for in a lot of different ways, visual ways, but then also technical ways. If accessibility becomes a big part of SEO, there's going to be implications in that field as well. So that shit AI throws together like a Framer type deal where the code is a jumbled mess. Also, again, no maintainability, no scalability whatsoever. It's giving you garbage is essentially what it's giving you. Now, maybe it gets to a point where it just does things exactly like, you know, you would want them done. It's going to be a while. And then I think we have to figure out what we're going to do beyond that to still be relevant for our clients. But this is the way right now. I mean, there's no magic button, and you shouldn't be looking for easy street. You should be looking to hone your craft and put out the best possible work possible and get paid top dollar for that. Okay, there's a reason why some people are struggling and they're doing $1,200 websites or $800 websites. If you're using a tool that bills itself as anybody can use it, of course they should only pay you $600 or $800. I mean, all you're doing for them is saving them a little bit of time. But if you're coming in as a consultant and you're saying, no, hold on, all of this copy has to be rewritten. Let me help guide this. Let me help guide this copy. The layout of this page, all wrong. You're not going to convert with it. Let me help you with the strategy behind the narrative of this page. And then we get into UI, and then we get into UX, and then we get into the SEO side of things, and then we get into what's happening with the paid ads. And this requires a guide. It requires leadership, a consultant, somebody that actually knows what they're doing That's when you start getting paid 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, whatever. Okay. So if you're in the camp of let's all race to the bottom, let's make sure we use the easiest tools with the easiest workflows, and let's get the tool to do as much of this work for us as we can. I would actually be on the side of the client. They should only pay you $500. That's what they should do, because that's what you're doing in terms of the work and value for them. So I would just, take that however you want to take it, I guess.
Yep.
Perfect. I think as far as start questions go, I don't have any more here. I have one or two shout outs. First one to Ryan Lee, Munil Ryan Lee. Thanks, brother, for offering that I can post the announcement in the Gutenberg Bricks group. Unfortunately, I didn't get to request access soon enough, so I guess we missed that chance. But we're really happy that you're on our side here. Also, you're giving a shout out to Advanced Teamer. Just want to second that. It's a fucking great tool, and obviously Gutenberg Bricks as well. So thanks for that. And then I want to give a quick shout out to David Wormsley. He used to do Beaver Builder videos back in the day when I was on Beaver Builder, and I learned a shit ton from him, and I was really glad to see him on this stream. So again, thanks so much, David, for being here and for creating the content you created at that time. That's pretty much what I have in the chat, unless I missed something in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Perhaps Mark, you saw something I didn't see.
I doubt we hit every question, but we have been going for
Probably
2.5
not.
hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could go all day, but I'm sure Kevin wants to get to the beach.
Pretty much, yeah.
Or maybe do
And
some
we're
other
still
work.
going strong. I mean, we were down to 160 something people. Now we're back up to 172. So it's pretty cool. Kevin, if you want to do that 10-hour video of all your rants edited together, I'm still open to listening to that. One question that I have for the community is, why don't this is just off the top of my head. I haven't talked to Mark about that, so he might break up with me now. If we do a bridge builders group on Facebook, would that be something you guys would like to join? Because I'm thinking if we have follow-up questions, or if we have follow-up ideas that we want to discuss with the people who were on this chat today and who are going to be there in the future, where do we post them? Do we post them in the Bricks group? Do we post them in Kevin's Inner Circle? It's fragmented, right? So if we open a bridge builders group, could that be of interest? I don't know. I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Definitely an idea to consider. Let us know, guys, if you'd be interested in that. Regardless of that, though, I mean, Brian's not here. Greatly appreciate Brian's time. Kevin, can't thank you enough, brother, for hopping on the stream. Always a pleasure. Tell the people where. I know most of the people probably know where they can find you, but give yourself some shout outs there.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so Geary.co is pretty much everything, central hub. So I would just encourage people to, obviously, if you watch that workflow and you've never seen it before, it's probably a little bit like, you're like, go to Page Building 101 on YouTube. It is 100% free. You can do every single episode in full, 100% free. And by the end of that Page Building 101 series, you will have light years more confidence and knowledge, and you will slowly start implementing some of this stuff. And then the magic of it is once you start to implement some of the pieces, you start to get a feeling of okay, I can't do it. I can't go back to the old way of doing it. I have to do it this way. It's not that I do it this way. It's that this way proves itself and proves its value, because once you open a site that hasn't been done using a lot of these principles, you realize what a cluster it is. It's just absolutely terrible, and you don't want to touch it, and you don't want to manage it, and you just want to move on to a different project. And so that's what I would encourage people to do. Page Building 101, get your knowledge up, get your skill up, get your confidence up, and then you'll also make more money too.
Yep, 100%. Love it. Well, I think this has been fantastic. Looking forward to the next one. Hopefully we can have you back, maybe building with bricks,
sure.
Oxygen, something, whatever you want. Maybe you'll convert to Gutenberg at some point, right? And then we can have you back there.
Who knows?
We'll see. Stranger things have happened. Matty, you want to sign us off here?
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe.
Thank you
to
so
Matty's
much,
channel.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks to Brian again, and we will see you guys soon.
Gotcha.
Have a great one. So
See you. Bye.
bye.